Hello and welcome to the podcast. Welcome back to the LARP Noobs. I'm joined by the incredible Mattie.
Hello. It's an Ian and Mattie takeover. Hi.
As we talk about a little LARP they went to called Dragon Feast.
Dragon's Hunt.
Dragon's Hunt even. We'll get it right.
It's because there's a Hunter's Feast player event coming up.
Yeah.
So all the hunts and feasts and things are all getting...
All merged.
They're all merged together. Yeah.
It was...
No, it was awesome.
Oh, dude, it's so exciting to talk about this. I can't wait to hear your perspective on things.
I really, really want to know what you're up to. I really do. For such a small LARP, there were so many different things happening that I still have no idea about. It was amazing.
I think there's a couple of things, like they may run it again.
That's very true. But first, just to start, what was Dragon's Hunt?
Oh, yes. Sorry, it's a Song of Ice and Fire, or if you know it better as Game of Thrones, LARP, set in the lands of Westeros. It all takes place before Robert's Rebellion in this alternate timeline that we are playing out. Basically, the Mad King slew Rickard Stark and the...
Stark? Yeah.
Basically then kind of died cackling on the throne.
Yeah, killed by Rhaegar, I believe. Was the point.
Okay.
Or certainly under his orders, and now Rhaegar is king.
Yeah. So it's basically before Robert's Rebellion has kicked off, although it's very much like precipice of war, potentially. And Rhaegar's basically decided to host this hunt to try and unify the kingdoms.
Well, there's one big change as well, was that rather than Rhaegar and Lyanna running off together, she was brought to King's Landing, and they actually got married.
Yes, that's a huge change.
Yeah, so we're all playing in this slightly altered universe of if these things were different, what would our characters then do?
And we were playing like two people from the Iron Islands, or I was from a native to the Iron Islands, and you were kind of drafted into the whole thing.
Yeah, no, so everyone, it was one of those LARPs, for anyone who doesn't already know about it, where you are given characters to play. So the way that it was run by Ren Stuart. I think it was their first game properly running it, but most people will know them from lots of various ILARP games, Feast Your Eyes games. They're a staple of the Eversea crew. A little vigilance priest, I believe Inquisitor of Vigilance currently, if you attend Empire. They're brilliant. We love Ren. Massive kudos for running this. It was amazing.
Did such an incredible job.
Yeah, so they'd come up with this concept, this timeline, and then had written a little brief for all of the characters that were there. And they had also included that there was like a bunch of, particularly the female characters had been either named or bulked out a little bit, so that there was a better balance between like the men and women characters, basically.
Yeah.
Including like mine, who wasn't even a person at all.
Yeah, I mean... I'm dead when the story starts, and your character is very much like a background kind of mentioned character.
Oh yeah.
I think there's like a couple of lines essentially about each of us.
Oh yeah, if not, yeah. Like we're mentioned by being mentioned, sort of thing. Like very small pulse, but there were also familiar faces like the Starks, the Tullys, the Baratheons, some of the Targaryens, Tyrells, Lannisters, all that. There's quite a lot of familiar faces, but of course everyone's about, I'd say, 20 to 30 years younger than they're supposed to be at the beginning of the first show that we know.
They did a couple of things with the time that was interesting. So it's obviously about sort of 20 years before the events that we kind of know, but also they decided to sort of remove kind of awkward sort of situations, increase the age of some of the children, so they basically everyone was 18 minimum, and that if you looked a bit at the time at everybody's ages, it maybe looked a bit strange, but like we kind of made it work.
We sort of stopped counting because there were a few where like their sibling was supposed to be 2 years younger, and then they were suddenly both 18, so it was fine. It didn't really matter the specifics of that kind of thing. It was just, are you in your majority or not, basically, and everyone was, apart from I think one NPC. Yeah, it was awesome. So I don't know who you applied for, but there was a thing where you could apply for 3 different roles, and then you were assigned one. And this is one of the roles that I applied for, who I got, who was Melony Piper.
Well, you suggested this to me.
Yes. Well, I think I'm trying to remember what happened, but I think I had been assigned the role and then asked, like, no one had been assigned Quellon. So basically, because we're assuming everyone knows what's going on here.
Yeah.
I was assigned to play the role of Lady Piper, who is the third wife of Quellon Greyjoy, who's the Lord of the Iron Islands and father of Balon Greyjoy, who is Theon's father, if you've only seen the show, which I had. So I was working only off my show knowledge. I had to do a bit of research. I didn't do that much, but I did enough, that's for sure. But then, so I'd been assigned Lady Piper, this character who had been given a first name. Congratulations, Melony, you get a name.
Oh, great.
Yeah, it was great. And I was like, oh, cool. But no one had, I think, yet been assigned to play Quellon.
Yeah.
Or the person who was originally assigned to it had decided not to take it or something like that. So I'd sent this to, I think it was only you and Dave, because I'd been like, there was other characters as well. I was like, oh, you guys should sign up. This would be really fun. And you did apply, right?
Yeah, and I was like, well, I can put my grey hair to good use.
You could quite lot to be like 70 or something.
Yeah, I was like proper old.
My old, aging, ailing husband.
Yeah, it was such an interesting role. So, like, because basically they released like these, you had like public briefs. And then later on with the promise of being basically given your private brief, which would have a lot sort of more detail. The public brief was basically like, you're this kind of reformer, you're trying to change the ways of the Iron Islands, which for people who don't know is a very kind of like Viking-y kind of culture, kind of sea-based, sort of reaving and raiding the coast is kind of a lot of the history. And Quellon's very much about like, you know, let's try and make relations with the mainland, and he can kind of see the writing on the wall that basically the old ways are going to lead to ultimate destruction, which, spoilers, in when Balon goes for independence is during the Greyjoy Rebellion, is exactly what happens.
Yeah, it's almost like I've listened to his dad, you know?
Yeah.
Just saying.
The way it was kind of written as well was like, we were kind of like this sort of marriage of basically trying to start this process.
Yeah, it's a political marriage.
Yeah. All these other marriages were on the Iron Islands, and this was actually, I was married in a sept in Pink Maiden, which is where your character was from.
Yeah. On
the mainland of Westeros, with a maester that we then brought back with us. I think in the actual story, it goes pretty badly for you.
It's not, yeah. It was really interesting because I didn't know that much about the plot, which I think in some ways helped. But then obviously, you know certain things from the osmosis of the culture of Game of Thrones phenomenon.
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly, yeah.
But for the whole Iron Islands thing, I really didn't know that much. But then we were assigned our characters and we got to meet the wonderful players playing the rest of the Greyjoys and Harlaws. So we had incredible Denise as Balon, Gigi as Alanis, Roderick as Roderick. Sorry, Khan as Roderick, and Elry stepped in quite late, actually, last minute as Aeron Greyjoy. And they were all fantastic and also knew a lot. So I kept asking lots of questions and found out a lot, which was brilliant. But it kind of worked also for me to be a bit clueless. I kind of was pleased about that.
This was one of the main intimidating things for me. I suddenly had, and this kind of, we'll kind of broach on this a bit later, I had a little minor panic where I was like, I have read the books a while ago and I have seen all the show, but like, I kind of had this whole thing of like, am I supposed to know all the things? I'm supposed to be like the High Lord of this place. I really, like, rabbit in the headlights, could not remember anything. I couldn't remember anybody's names. I couldn't really remember all the proper terminology for things. And I kind of got very in my head about all of that.
Oh, really? Sorry, I shouldn't make fun. Yeah, it's true. It's valid. I think it's valid to have that kind of concern when it's like, it's from a franchise and a piece of media that already exists, that a lot of people know a lot about. But also, it's a game. That's fine. And you had the absolute benefit of you playing a 70-year-old man. Like, it doesn't matter if you forget things sometimes.
This is
it's
true.
Probably quite in character.
Yeah,
like,
this is
that's
true.
Fine.
I think I will get into it, but yeah, I kind of I relaxed a lot as things went on, but it was like that was probably one of the main difficulties. I have memory issues anyway, so it was kind of like...
Yeah, but I mean, so does half of the LARP base. Like, most of us are neurodivergent, and memory is not exactly... Like, you either win the memory lottery or you don't in that case, you know? So it's fine. No one's ever going to Like, if you're ever worried about this sort of thing going into a LARP, it sounds so silly to say, just don't be, because I know that's not how it works. But if you can, just try and remember, no one cares. No one really cares. No one is sitting there grading you on how much you know about the world or the characters. Like, it's about the cinema. That's the point of the whole thing. And if they do, then, you know, they're not the sort of player that necessarily you want to play with again.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
I've got other things to do, you know?
Yeah. Everyone was fantastic. Like, the whole set was amazing.
Amazing.
What an event. Anyway, we should probably get into it.
Yeah.
So the first thing, I suppose, was like getting all of the sort of kit and everything together slowly. I mean, you have been a very busy bod at many
I've
LARPs.
been a busy little LARPer. Yeah, I have. It's been a bit nuts. And it's funny because Dragon's Hunt is probably the one that I knew about for the longest. Because it was all, you know, organised and planned. I don't
Ways ago. It was a long time ago. Yeah, like beginning of the year.
I want to say beginning of the year. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, because I remember Ren talking about how they'd pitched it at Christmas. So yeah, it must have been very much at the beginning of the year. And I had been like, oh, I'm going to make costume and do this. And I had loads of ideas. And then, dear listener, you'll never guess what happened. I did not do that. Through a combination of typical running out of time and also my sewing machine. I've lost some parts to my sewing machine, so that didn't help. But yeah, I had grand ideas, and then I ended up doing about 700 LARPs within the space of 2 months or something.
Yeah.
So I was just very busy. But I did discover within the course of some of the other LARPs this magical thing that you'll definitely never have heard of. It's really niche. It's called Vinted. Not sponsored, but I would love to be. That would be amazing. Which I just started. I had this idea of just layering particular shaped dresses over each other. I don't know why I thought of this. I just did. And then I just did that. I was like, there's a particular silhouette that I'm looking for. It's a particular way of layering things. I grabbed a whole bunch in the right kind of colours because obviously in Game of Thrones, like the houses have different colours.
Yes.
And the Greyjoys it's black and yellow.
It's black and yellowy goldy kind of colours. Okay. And our symbol is a kraken and all this kind of
kraken.
stuff.
Yeah, it's all squid stuff all the time.
Good stuff, yeah.
And then for the Piper colours, there's not really a specific set, but like their shield is like a pink lady with her boobs out, a pink maiden, some might say, holding like a white cloth on a blue, like a sort of beautifully, it's a really nice like a petrol blue background. Yeah. So I was like, okay, cool. I can find stuff in those colors. For various reasons, I mostly found stuff not in the Greyjoy colors, and then I was like, actually, this works really well for the brief that I've been given. So that was really cool.
Your kit transition was incredible throughout the whole event. It was a story in itself, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of worked out nicely that the story went in the direction it did. I mean, I kind of suspected it might anyway, but it did really match the beats of the different costumes that I had. And also, you know, I like changing costumes. I'm a serial costume changer.
So good.
I think it's basically just Oasis, not Oasis, what am I saying? It's basically just Empire that I don't change kit. Every other LARP I've done, I pretty much change kit every day or something. Oh, Hoist I didn't, but that was also because I like that kit how it is.
Your Hoist kit is amazing.
Yeah, I just get overexcited and I like a costume change, you know?
It was amazing. You did this wonderful transition as you slowly moved away from being Greyjoy coded to being returning to sort of Piperlands, yeah.
Yeah, but you had good kit too, because you'd started collecting bits and pieces like before the summer.
Yeah, I mean, I basically got myself like a long kind of leather coat, which is kind of styled after Aragorn's kind of leather coat. It's actually like a reproduction of that.
Oh, really? Okay, that's cool.
So, and then it came a little bit sort of shiny. So I basically sprayed some matte spray over it to sort of tone it all down. And that took the edge off. And then I just got a very light wire brushing to sort of add a little bit of texture to it.
Because it just looked like an oilskin coat. Like it didn't look like shiny or not shiny particularly. It looked really like all the layers you had were really good with the gloves and the scarf stuff as well.
Oh, thank you.
It was perfect.
I wanted to have like basically the way I was kind of imagining it was right. Like Quellon is here on his last oh yeah, other thing. My character is dying in a year. It's
Spoiler
like
alert.
it's big spoiler. My character.
Spoiler
Its
alert.
secret is that he is
Quellon's on his
dying
last legs.
within a year. You know this, and my best mate Roderick knows this.
Yeah.
Although I didn't actually know that you both knew this, but I guessed that you probably did. But yeah, so that
I told you. I definitely told you that I knew this because there was a whole thing about I was nursing you to
yes,
your last days. God, it was a bit dire, wasn't it?
It was pretty dire. Yeah, playing a sick character is actually, or a terminal character in that way for a whole LARP was quite an interesting headspace to be in. But anyway, so I had this kind of concept that like he's having to dress up, he's having to do the going old begrudgingly man goes to party but doesn't really want to be there. So I kind of got myself like a nice flashy curta, which is like black with like, these little sort of sequins and stuff on it.
God, you love a curta.
I do,
but actually, they're a really good LARP layer.
They're a great base layer
because
really they have so much texture. It had because I'd looked at Euron's outfit in the last seasons of Game of Thrones. He has this kind of slightly sort of textured cross pant undershirt, and I found this curta that basically was a direct match for it, pretty much. So I was like, I'll just get that. Then coat on top, belt, trousers. But then I got myself like this. I found this kind of scarf and these kind of distressed kind of fingerless gloves, and I was like, yes, he definitely has a tatty scarf and some like fingerless gloves that he picks away at. And that's like his protest.
Yeah. He's like, no, I'm not changing the scarf. It still works.
Yeah.
It's like, still good.
I had in my head that...
Please get a new scarf. I'll buy you a new scarf. No, I like this one.
It's perfectly serviceable.
I had this during the war.
Yeah.
Fundamental. Yeah, can see it.
That was another whole thing. It was really interesting playing like this character. Like back in the day, he was like the guy who led like 100 longships. And did all these things. Although he was very much like part of his story was that he sort of fought against the slavers, and although he did kind of engage in kind of reaving, there was some kind of shift that I was kind of reading in this kind of bit of his backstory. It was like, okay, something happened. So I got in touch with Ren, and Ren was amazing, and I was just like, how about this as a proposal for like where that shift kind of came? We kind of worked on this kind of little bit of a backstory that he had basically come across a sort of a slaving ship and sort of seen the horrors of it all and been fully exposed to it as a young man, and that had kind of changed his perspective very much.
Sick. Okay.
On all this kind of
really
stuff.
Cool that you had that conversation as well. Like,
it was nice. I mean, like the problem is you got some quite problematic themes in Game of Thrones.
No, really.
So it was like it was very much like in the background kind of head lore rather than stuff that I wanted to throw out, but I thought it was nice to have that. I'm a bit of a sucker for having things that you as other players probably will never come across, but me as me knows that I can kind of work off.
Your characterization as well, right? Especially when you're playing a character who doesn't have that, but also has a part in the story. So you've kind of got two difficulties in that it's hard playing a character that already exists because you have to play it a certain way. Now, obviously, you don't have to because Quellon was like already exists, but also doesn't really. But you still have a part within this wide narrative that you kind of know the beats of. So then it's also hard because you have to make up a lot of stuff, which unlike 100%. A character that you make fresh where you can just make stuff up and you're like, well, it's canon now, I have invented it. It's like, okay, it's canon, but does it make sense for everybody else, you know, who's assuming this and that? But that's really good that you had the conversation. I think that's always wonderful.
Oh yeah, no, it was nice, and it was like everyone was super approachable on the team. Like I'd never played, and I think that I'm right in saying this is the same for you. I'd never played a character which had been prescribed before. Like I've always, every LARP I've gone to, I've got to create my character.
Yeah, I would have said yes, although arguably at Eldritch I sort of did. But again, I think Eldritch actually was quite a similar experience to your experience here, in that there were certain things that had to happen and that were given to me, but then the rest I kind of had freedom to do. But it was sort of like you have freedom, but you have to stay within these kind of lines, which is
there's expectations, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So going into it, like, were you interested in playing Quellon, or was it like, oh, I'm really interested, this will be fun, I've no idea what it's going to be like?
I think because there was this great kind of potential space with the Greyjoys and their story. I mean, originally it was literally like, I get to play with you. And like, that's going to be awesome.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, we've like never done that before.
No, I mean
we still haven't.
No, we still haven't. Like we really. I don't know if we spoke for 20 minutes in the whole event.
Barely that, yeah.
But we played a bunch of tabletop stuff over this last kind of year or two now, and it was like, this is a great opportunity to play with an awesome friend, and also stepping in as like a husband-wife duo. It was like you made me feel very comfortable doing that.
Well, I also was like, I really value the fact that it's someone I know really well doing this. Like there is, and I've spoken to Sol, who's been on this podcast a few times as well, about this, about how you can, like, there's a certain level of like knowing each other that works really well for like very intense themes, right? And it's knowing each other super, super well, or not knowing each other at all. I think it's that sort of middle ground where you're like, we kind of know each other and we laugh and we're kind of friends, but we'd never really got to know each other. That it gets a little bit more like it doesn't feel as comfortable because you haven't yet got to know each other's boundaries or whatever. But you also know each other out of character enough that it's not like, okay, we don't know each other at all, so we can just go for it and we'll. Like, there's no expectations, which also kind of works. So it was really nice being like, okay, I know who it's going to be. I know that there's like this point of safety of like, okay, you know, we'll be all right regardless. And we have loads of opportunities to talk, and it'll be fine.
I mean,
I
knew it'd be fine as well.
Regardless. But it was also really fun. I was like, you can do something nice. I really want to get a chance to like roleplay with you. And also, I really wanted you to get to come along to one of these. Like some of the amazing stuff that Feast Your Eyes does now, and they allow other people to come in and run, is just amazing. And I've had such a good time doing so many of them this year.
I wish I got to do more.
That I was like, I want to share the experience. More people come.
I think like it's definitely made me think about how I want to construct my next year, because the reality is, I know we're kind of straying a bit off topic here, but the reality is I can only
deal with it. We're just chatting.
I can only basically do 6-ish LARPs a year. So it's like, how am I going to divide that between fest LARPs that I want to do, but also like these kind of more bespoke LARP experiences, they offer a very different opportunity. I'd played I mean, basically I've only ever done Empire and Flying Lead, which was obviously another Feast Your Eyes game, which was incredible.
I think that's an ILARP one, but carry on.
It was 2 events at the end of that, and that was absolutely incredible. So I knew it was going to be amazing. The site at Eversley is amazing as well, and the crew are just always tip top and put so much effort in. And my word, they went to so much effort on this. But it has.
We'll get there.
It has made me think very much about how I want to do next year for sure. And this was just a great opportunity. So amazing. I was so pleased.
Yeah, I'm sorry because now it's actually made you want to do more of them. Just making them hard for you. Sorry.
Yeah, it was really, really good. So we should probably jump into it. One other thing we did was originally we were gonna stay at a friend's house. Unfortunately, that and who was also going to attend various reasons they couldn't come. And we were without a place to stay. Fortunately, Eversley is an incredible site with places that you can stay, one of which was this ridiculously cool hut that you had previously scouted at, was it at Eldritch you scouted it?
Hoist, I think. But actually, so what normally happens is you normally camp, you bring your tents, but there's also huts on site, and if you arrive early enough, then you can take one of the unassigned ones. Obviously, they're built by volunteers at Eversley, and those people that built them obviously get first preference on that hut. for Dragon's Hunt, we were all based in the area of Eversea called Viking. And every different sort of
house.
I don't know what they call them. Yeah. I guess they're the kingdoms, right? So 7 kingdoms. Each different kingdom had its own area within Viking, and so therefore basically one of the huts around Viking. And we had whatever it was called. It's a very long one right at the back. Very long. It goes back for quite a way. It's so incredible. And that was assigned to the Greyjoys, to the Iron Islands, to use as our in-character base. Now, conveniently, when I'd scouted it the week before, we realised that there were loads of beds in there. Like, there's bunks. There's all these wooden bunks in there. Because it was really convenient that there were enough bunks, because it turned out 2 of the others from the Iron Islands also could no longer bring their tent. So we all just bunked in.
So good.
Put our, sleeping mats down, and then your beds on top and furs and whatnot. And shout out to, I cannot for the life of me remember who it was that made it. I want to say Dean, something like that.
I think it began with a D.
But oh my gosh, it's incredible.
Really good.
It was so nice. We used the whole front bit as like an in-character sort of setup. And then there was a fire pit bit at the back. So we had, every night we went in there. The little bed bunks were really cozy, had loads of space to get ready.
You had like a dresser style thing, and there was like a full mirror and everything.
Like a little thing in my section.
It was amazing,
it was really, really good.
And they had like little drawer curtains for your area of bed, so you had like privacy. It was so nice.
Yeah, and when you're LARPing in like it's getting towards winter time. Now we were lucky it wasn't actually that cold, but I was in fact too warm on the first night.
Yeah,
I could not believe it. I did like stack the hand warmers.
Yeah, I bought like a big old box of 40 hand warmers and I just dished them out.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. If no one knows about these already, this is your sign to get some. They are incredible. Even on just like a spring night. Honestly, the hand warmers are so good. They're the little like one-use ones, but they basically last an entire night. You can chuck them in your sleeping bag. You can chuck them down your clothes, whatever you want. They are amazing. They just warm you up.
It was fantastic. Man, it was so good. Okay, so also we had like an awning outside that was all ours as well. I did bring my awning, but it was completely surplus to requirement. In fact, most of the stuff I bought was surplus to requirement. It was so well kitted up. I think all we ended up using was my chairs in the end.
Yeah. Well, did we bring the flags? The banners?
Oh, no, I bought those. I bought the banners.
There you go. So, like, most of the houses have brought their own. That was okay. That's the other thing. Before we get into what actually happened, so everybody in all of the groups, it was one of those LARPs where everyone bought in 110%. So all of the different families had been talking to each other before the game. So they had coordinated costumes, they coordinated like set dressing. So there were banners on the different areas that people had brought. People had decorated, like Tyrells had brought loads of fake flowers to decorate their awning. All of the costumes were amazing. Like the what are they called? The Kingsguard?
The white cloaks and all that.
Yeah, Kingsguard all had matching cloaks that Ethan had made, who was playing Arthur Dane. They were just, everyone was coordinated and looked good. Like, you can see it really clearly in some of the amazing pictures that V did. That's Calliope Pictures, who did just most incredible photography, but also at the end did different group pictures. So, and you can really see the colours, cohesion and everything. It looks awesome. It was so cool.
Yeah, because there is like, with the houses, especially the way they're represented in sort of the Song of Ice and Fire kind of still world, they are very much like color coordinated. You know, they have their mottos and their symbols and iconography and all this kind of stuff, and their color themes. I mean, you obviously had this interesting role of like transitioning throughout the whole event, but the fact that everybody kind of had really thought these things out, and there was different ways of expressing the brief as well, right? Like,
yeah, what are they called? I've genuinely forgotten. The little tags with the symbol on.
So the symbols on.
It's not a coat of arms.
Oh, the crests. Yeah.
Crests, there we go. So, like, people had made crests and things. There was a lot of chat. Everyone had agreed, essentially, beforehand and gone, like, the show made it too bland. We want to go for colours. Make a big thing of the colours. And it was stunning. It really was stunning. We'd all talked about before time in what parts of our costumes we would be wearing from having just arrived as well. So we were kind of talking about like, okay, we've just arrived from here. Okay, we've traveled for this long, blah, blah, blah. I think we've made the agreement that because the Greyjoys are like that, they had probably sailed the long way round. So we've been on a boat for weeks, which was great. But it was little things like having that very brief conversation beforehand that meant I suddenly had something to talk about with people immediately. Of like, oh, how was your journey? Oh, we've been on a boat for weeks. It was like immediately like, okay, there's a thing here. Oh my gosh, that's awful. You know, you're off to a start. So some small little character aspect that you talk about can suddenly just lead into the weekend, just immerse you immediately.
It makes so much sense in the world, especially for like your character as well. It gave you a really good, like, seeing Melony come back to the mainland and the way that you were welcomed and the way that we were kind of treated was like, there was it was like, oh, okay, like we are the outsiders here, like it's actually you know what I mean. It was like really interesting.
It was really good.
Like, we should get into it.
So another couple of things. Well, there's another couple of things even before. So first of all, I was contacted beforehand by some of the Tullys because my character, as a Piper of the Riverlands, had quite a connection with the Tullys and was best friends with Catelyn Tully, and therefore like knew her mother very well. And so one of the things that we had talked about within the sort of Iron Islands group was the fact that there's probably going to be a lot of conflict. Yeah. So we'd all talked about this ad infinitum to make sure everyone was like on board, where the levels are, blah, blah, blah. Spoiler alert. At some point, I think the Oasis recording will come out and you'll hear how much I absolutely love things being horrific. Because I was like, basically, don't worry about it. But for everyone's, peace of mind, this is what we're at. Because, I was essentially 100% at odds with Balon and Alanis. So we talked about that and having like safe spaces and where to go and blah, blah, blah. And then I'd also had this conversation with the Tullys, and I sort of knew that, okay, I have somewhere to escape to Icy. Because one of the things that I found as a role player is I've heard you talk about this as well. I hate going OC. Yeah. If I can at all avoid it, I will. I will spend as little time as possible in the OC areas during the daytime. Yeah. Like, it's fine to go over for a bit, but it will only take me maybe 5-10 minutes before I'm chomping to get back in. It obviously depends on the game. Like, these sort of more intense ones, I'm much more desperate to stay in because the immersion is so good and the story is so good. So I was like, I don't want to drop OC if possible. I will make sure then that I also have icy places too and ways of escaping the situation. And I trust myself that I know my own limits, and I trust every player there. Like, the people that go to these games, I trust. I know quite a lot of them already, even to like small extents. The fact that I know that other people know and trust them is always a good sign. So yeah, when the Tullys were like, hey, you can always come and sit with us sometimes, they mentioned beforehand, I was like, great, wonderful, we're sorted. Yeah. I've got no more issues at all. This is going to be great. This is going to be wonderful.
Were fantastic with me, I have to say, because like when we turned up, I was pretty nervous actually. As we got closer to time in,
you did have a moment.
I was like,
I think I could see it suddenly hit you on the face, and you just.
I think I just said to you, I'm really nervous.
I'm feeling quite. I'm feeling quite
because I didn't know anybody. And I like my brain had just gone blank of like, what the hell am I going to say? Because I like my lore knowledge. Because I think I was listening to like Gigi and Dennis talk, and they just knew so much about the lore, and I was like, fuck, I don't know anything. I'm supposed to be the head of this house, and I don't know anyone. I just had like a massive internal panic, and then you just gave me this great advice of just go and talk to people, like OC.
Yeah, I was like, let's just go for a walk. We're gonna go for a walk.
And it was nice, actually.
We're gonna go over to the crew thing. We'll get a cup of tea. I think that's what I said. Let's just go get a cup of tea. There's no problem in LARP. at least in LARP, that I found can't be solved by just going for a quick cup of tea.
It was really good. That was super duper helpful.
And just talking to people.
It did take a bit of time in game to kind of get into gear, but like that actually was like hugely helpful. Just to be able to like see some faces, smile, listen to you talk to people, even though it like that you were in a friendly environment with friendly people. Even though I did know a lot of people I know people by sight. And like brief, like 1-2 minute conversations. It was nice to sort of engage in a couple of bigger conversations and be like,
well, it's nice as well before you play at any game to be like, hi, I'm Ian. Nice to meet you. I'm going to be playing this person. So then if people see you, they go, oh, hi, Quellon. Like they know you already. It's not like, wait, who are you? Who are you playing? Like you have that moment, and then just that little bit of at ease before you play of reminding yourselves and reminding each other that it is a game. Especially one that we knew it was going to be intense. Like, it's Game of Thrones. It's essentially a socio-political PvP LARP. Like, that's what it was going to be. So knowing people and interacting with them was the point, right? I'm good. I'm glad it helped.
That was so genuinely, that was probably the most helpful thing going into the whole thing. It was so good.
Make it a top tip. Mattie's top tip. If you're feeling nervous and you don't really know anyone, just walk around and talk to them. Offer to help with tents. Offer to carry something. Sit down at a bench. See who comes and sits with you. LARPers love talking.
It was great.
That's why we're here.
The other really cool thing, you kind of touched on this briefly, that the rules for the game, and this is kind of what I loved so much about it. Because, like, I've obviously playing Flying Lead, there were a couple, there's less rules than the Empire, but there still were a fair few sort of structured rules about the way different classes and things operated. The rules for this were so hands-off. It was basically like, well, I'm literally going to say the only rules that I'm aware of, and thus they're the only rules that mattered. So the only rules I was aware of was that sometime on Saturday night, we were all going to get called to make a vote in the OC area, which was basically, where are you putting your support behind? And that could be the king, it could be Robert, it could be some other cause. And then the idea is on Sunday, the Huntmaster will come out and announce something that they have seen in the forest, and this will be a representation of who will ultimately be victorious in the events to come. And that basically lets you...
Okay, no, that's really interesting, because I didn't know that, actually.
Oh, okay. Like that's... But so,
there you go.
And then the idea is that, like, you get to role play out all of those kind of things with the foreknowledge, like that almost like fourth wall breaking knowledge of like, I'll see you on the field, or like, you know, all that kind of stuff before we time out on the Sunday. So that was one rule. And the only other rule I was aware of was that everyone has a prowess score, which ranges from 0, which you had, which is basically you can't hold a sword, right? You're basically...
All right.
Well,
I sort of fudged that a little bit later, it turned out, by accident, but that's fine.
Oh, amazing.
We'll
interesting. Okay. I had a 1, which is like, you can wave a sword about. The idea, I mean, obviously I'm supposed to be like 70 years old and sick, right? So there's no way I'm fighting anyway. And it basically goes all the way up to like 4, which I assume is like Sir Arthur Dane, like you kick ass and you're ridiculous. And the way that rule basically panned out was there's a tourney that will be taking place, and you basically sign up to it in pairs. And before your bout in that tourney, you go off to a cabin, compare your scores, and then I think...
Well, that was so cool. Yeah, that was really clever.
You decide like how it's going to play out as a cinematic expression.
Yeah.
And then it happens.
So you're maybe confusing rules and mechanics slightly. It was these are the mechanics that we had. There were a couple of other mechanics, which were the de-escalation and escalation ones. I didn't see them used very often. I think everyone was pretty much on the same wavelength of most things, but it didn't really need to so much.
The only thing I ever saw was the escalation thing be used once. Yeah.
Oh, really?
We'll get to that.
Okay, we'll get to that later. I want to hear when. But it was basically there was a call of, it's not what it looks like.
Oh, that was so good.
Which is if it absolutely is what it looks like. If you and another character had snuck away to go and have hanky-panky and got caught and went, it's not what it looks like, it was basically a sign to say, yes it is, that's absolutely what we've been doing. There was, I think it was like something like, come on then, or something. There was an escalation one. Oh, please. Yeah, it was the escalation.
Just
What was the
hold
other
was
one?
to say that you wanted to do it.
Just
to
hold,
sort of chill out.
Yeah, chill out a little bit, just step back or whatever. And of course, as usual, you can always drop OC or talk to people. Everyone knew each other well enough that I think most of the time there weren't really any just holds. And everyone's pretty good at being really aware of the other people that they're with.
I think that's it, right?
But yeah, no, we'll get to the tournament thing later because the mechanics of that was really, the way they did that was very clever. But all of this was explained to us in like the pre-game stuff.
Yeah.
Which Ren ran. But it was amazing. The other thing we did was they called it like workshop, but admittedly it's not really a workshop. But we had the different groups. So these are your lords paramount. This is your rich people. These are your unmarried men. These are your unmarried women. These are these group. This is the small council. So they kind of had everyone move together, and so you could look around and see who's kind of in your group, who's not in your group. Who are you looking at to know of these things? We were hampered a little bit by the fact that it was already dark, which didn't help, and a few people had been a bit delayed in arriving. But it was fine, and it worked really well. And I think that is the sort of mechanic that, like all of that, 100%, I would say, do that exactly as it was again. Just maybe have some lights first.
Yeah, it was great. I think it was amazing because the whole... this is going to sound negative, but I mean it in the most positive way.
And just before you go on, because I will forget this, I think having a cast list was such a good idea. It was so useful to be able to know who was playing who. Obviously, there were a few last-minute changes, but to know who was playing who in advance and be able to approach people if they were people relevant to your backstory or not.
It's crucial.
Was amazing. I think I would even have asked if there was, the possibility of having one with pictures somewhere that was hosted a bit more privately so that we could have all seen it. But yeah, that was really good. Sorry, carry on.
Yeah, for me, and this is going to sound potentially negative, but I mean it in the most positive way. All of the NPC stuff or all of the things that happened were kind of not the focus from my perspective. Maybe they were for you, but...
Yeah, no, I completely agree. No, I agree.
The main focus of all of the RP took place in Viking, which is a relatively small area, right? Just with all of the players talking and scheming and doing the Game of Thrones things for 2 days or whatever. It was crazy.
Yeah. The NPCs that we had that were permanently in were incredible and so useful. There were a couple of small encounters. You're right. They were enjoyable. They were well run, the ones they did. I mean, the one that I will shout out the most is mine, but I'll talk about it later.
Oh, yours sounds incredible, yeah.
But apart from that, like there was like a bandit attack and there was a kidnapping. Now, it gave great RP because someone died and then someone else had to be grieving for the rest of the weekend. But overall, I think it would have been absolutely as good and as fun without as well. Because you're right, like with the NPC input that was already there and the players and the briefs that Ren had written and the players that they'd cast and the way that everyone was brought in, the game was there already.
It was a powder keg already, right, of like political shenanigans waiting to blow.
It was there already. Exactly. And having like the tournament and like the food. Oh my God, we'll talk about the food later. Oh, yes, chef. It was good. It was so good. And having those, like the structure of it, I think was perfect. So the perfect structure with the players meant that the game ran itself. It seemed. I'm sure Ren
would probably disagree.
Behind the scenes that we don't know about. But it really felt like one of those where you could be like, just see what happens. Let it happen, you know?
I think especially like being a character who I'd kind of made the decision, like realistically, I ain't fighting, right? I'm 70 years old and I'm sickly and dying, so I'm not going to be doing any of that kind of stuff. And most of my game was literally just talking to players.
Oh, same.
I think I hobbled off to see an encounter occur, but and then the rest of the things was like watching other people do stuff. But all of those moments were fantastic because they were opportunities for me to have side conversations with other people while everyone else was distracted doing the thing. Yeah. It was amazing.
Yeah, it was really good. Yeah, it's true. I mean, for the ladies too, obviously we weren't necessarily going to do much of the combat, but we'll get... I mean, now we're starting to do... Let's go through the weekend. I think
we should actually talk about the LARP proper.
Let's go through what happened, and then we can do more reviewy stuff afterwards.
Let's do
How
that.
about that?
Let's do that. It's too exciting.
Okay. All right. Friday, post workshops, it's time to time in. And we timed in a very interesting way.
Yeah, so basically they did it by distance travelled, of you essentially entering the scene and being introduced to King Rhaegar. And being that we're from the Iron Islands, we took the long way round, as we are wont to do. We were, I think we were the last, or we were the second from last. We were basically towards the back.
Second last or something.
We walk in. This is an Ian at peak nerves kind of moment.
Oh, I played up those nerves so much. I was like, yeah, I would be nervous. Let's lean in.
But it actually ended up working out really well, because I think it gave a lot of space for Balon and Alanis to really control the tempo of what the Greyjoy house was at the beginning. Anyway, so we walk up, get introduced to the king. I think I say your Lord King instead of your Grace, which is an immediate faux pas, but it was fine.
But no one but you will ever have noticed. I want you to know.
No, I was massively in my own head. Anyway, the best part about all this was it was so fun to sort of immediately see you be able to be reintroduced to mainlanders, and as I say, us to be like, oh, we're the people on the outside and we aren't particularly well liked, because Greyjoys, generally speaking, aren't that well liked, because we tend to raid the coast and stuff.
No, you weren't popular. You haven't made many friends.
No.
So for me, going into the weekend, so my character, Melony Piper, Lady Piper, not Lady Greyjoy, though she should have been, but she was Lady Piper. My whole goal for the weekend was to make sure I had an exit plan for when Quellon died, because it wasn't looking good with what would happen after you died. Yeah. I would probably be in danger.
I think that's probably actually an important thing to say, is our relationship. It's kind of like we get on. Yeah. Like it's a marriage of convenience, or I don't know what the proper terminology is.
Political marriage.
Yeah. We're not at odds, but the idea is that I'm going to die, and then everyone else hates you, basically.
And when your son inherits, they are not my biggest fans. Yeah. For reasons that I would find out later, which was really interesting. But yeah, so that was with all the conflict that we were talking about before. But so my goal was, okay, I need to get out of here. I don't like it in the Iron Islands. We're friendly. We're pretty, we're getting along, which is working. But we also don't know each other that well. Like, you're an old man. Yeah. I don't want to be in the Iron Islands. I don't like it there. It's not very nice, etc., etc. So I had obviously spoken to the Tullys. I knew Catelyn was my best friend, who I hadn't seen in a while. So on arrival, one of the first things that happened was I saw the Tullys, and I was like, oh my gosh, hi! And I got to run over and give Catelyn a big hug. And I've never roleplayed with Sarah before, but we'd had a few brief conversations on Facebook, and I was like, oh my gosh, hi! And immediately they were all brilliant. I really want to massively shout out the Tully players. Red playing Hoster, Lucy. Oh my god, sorry, Lucy. Lucy playing Minisa, and Chloe playing Lysa. They were so good, and they were so perfectly they just immediately jumped onto. Of course, we've known each other for so long. Of course. And just built into that immediately so well, in that perfect way. When you run up to someone, you're like, hi, it's been so long. You don't want them to go has it? Who are you? And them to go, yeah, of course. Do you remember that? And they just did that beautifully in front of you lot as well.
Yeah, I completely bought into it from my perspective. And then it was also from Quellon's perspective, you're one of his few allies, in terms of his way of thinking, his way of his forward thinking beliefs of what the Iron Islands should be, right?
Yeah.
So one of my main objectives is to find I don't want you hanging around on my deathbed getting killed, was one of them.
Yeah, because that would be bad.
And the other thing is I'm trying to seek reform.
Yeah, there were so many goals. Everyone had different conflicting goals, and it was so good.
There was this bit in the brief which was suggestive that I could use the fact that the Tullys are going to want you back.
Oh, really?
And use that as leverage.
Ah. Oh, I like that. Okay.
So I wasn't entirely sure. Like at first, that's why I was a little bit distant with them.
Mm.
But then
Mm-hmm.
things basically speedily progressed with Balon and Alanis just being incredible and just being very antagonistic in the best
Oh,
way.
they were so good. They played that beautifully.
Peak antagonism just undermined me so proficiently. I want you to. The backdrop for almost everything that I'm going to say throughout this entire event is I talk to somebody, and 15 minutes later, somebody comes up to me and says, Balon has pissed off so and so, and I'm like, I just spoke to them and we were on the same page. Like, what the fuck? How?
You're Mr. Incredible at the beginning of the movie. Like, I just cleaned up this
I
mess.
was like, I couldn't believe it. Like, it was like they were actively following me around. Like, which maybe they were. I don't know. But like everything I did was just. It was so good to have this antagonism bubble flowing around.
Yeah. Okay, let's try and blast through very quickly. So, in vague orders, we all arrived, kingdom by kingdom. We then were invited to go and sit down. There were going to be some food served. There was some nice little food, during which time the high table, the king and people sat down. There was a performance. There was some music. There were some gifts given to the king. And then it was kind of like free evening to sort of do what you needed to do. So as a lady of Westeros, I'll get into this a bit more, I think, later if we talk about it. Hopefully we'll get a chance to talk about it. But the ladies, like the way that it was all done with the whole like social divide was amazing. Best. It's so good. Exactly what I wanted, what I hoped for, etc. I think everyone, especially the people playing the female characters, because there were a lot of people who are like trans and non-binary playing female characters for the weekend. And that's it's not easy to do, you know. There's quite a few people doing crossplay as well, like the other direction too. But it was amazing. It was so distinct and it worked. Everyone bought in and it was very safe, but very interesting as well. Like we talked before about like, oh, it's so interesting. Like I really like this idea of what like playing with the power in a limited power scenario and what you have and like social power versus power. Like we talk about it even regards to Empire, soft power versus like titles, right? And I find that very interesting. And that was something that I got a lot of from the weekend. But playing a lady, I just got to like sit around and look pretty a lot, which was also really nice and really fun, and have loads of really cool conversations with other people playing amazing women.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
Maybe I'm biased, but I genuinely feel like, firstly, I think the Greyjoy story throughout the whole weekend was incredible. But I think your story specifically would be like, it is definitely the kind of thing you could see as a POV in a George R.R. Martin thing.
Oh, thanks, man.
It was like, because you were so wonderfully embedded in, like, you're not like at the high table, right? You're not like, you're kind of in this position of like, you have a narrow range of power and you have to navigate your way through based on the constraints that are placed upon you.
Yeah.
And there's so much that's involved in that.
I had a lot to do. Yeah. For me, it did feel like I had an arc as well.
Yeah.
Like I had a journey and a storyline. I mean, absolute shout out to the everyone who was involved in writing the briefs. It was amazing. But also like the fact that, so Ren had included this character because of, you know, having another female character from the Iron Islands, really, and then been like, yeah, you could do that. And it was amazing that they trusted me to do that with something with such little knowledge and make a story that really I was involved in quite a lot of other people's stories in the end.
Oh yeah, I felt that you were really actually a very important character.
Well, I mean, obviously I feel that way because it was my game. I only have my game to compare to, but
for sure.
Yeah, it certainly yet again made me feel like I'd kind of won LARP. Like I just keep feeling this way, where it just feels like somehow I've ended up at these moments where I end up in the main character spot. Obviously not. That's not how LARP works, but it feels that way to me.
Yes. Yeah.
In playing it. And that is incredible. It's how you want to feel at a LARP, obviously. But it was great. It was really cool.
It's amazing because I felt very similar as well. Like stepping out, I was like, oh, okay, like we'll get to it at the end, but it's like the ultimate position of power was like so ridiculous.
Oh, it was good. It was so good. Oh, I have a question. When did you find out about the vote thing? Like what that would mean and how like that mechanic would work? Were you told that before and I just missed it?
That was actually in the brief, like the actual rules brief.
Okay, I just missed it. I just missed it. Never mind.
Yeah. To be honest with you, I had to explain it to all of the Greyjoys because I don't think everyone quite understood how the vote thing worked. But it was, to be honest, it was written, and I like this. It's written in a very hands-off way. Like it obviously there's the suggestion that we are going to either be voting for Rhaegar or Robert because they're the two principal forces in this pending war.
It wasn't an actual vote. It was more like to influence the plot of things.
But like in theory, you could vote for me, right? You could vote and like, you know, then they see, I guess, a squid in the forest. I don't know. I don't know. But,
there's a dragon in the forest, and then a squid jumps out of the water and eats it. What?
Amazing.
Oh no, what does it mean? That would be crazy. Oh my gosh. Yeah, but okay, cool. That's interesting. So for the rest of my night, oh god, but the play.
The play was really good. And the great thing about the play, so they basically had this playwright who then would draft in actual like people to play the roles,
players and NPCs. It was a mix. Yeah.
It was so good. And like,
oh, also the NPCs that at least 3 of the NPCs that came in, I did not know were not players. I had no idea.
I'll be honest with you, I've no concept at all who were players and NPCs. Like, I couldn't actually tell you.
They were so good. I had no idea.
I don't even want to say. Like, I think I'm wrong in all of my assumptions.
They were just brilliant. It was really good. Everyone was peak.
Everyone committed to the really NPC roles as if they were players, and that's what I loved about it. And we all treat them like they were players, and I did because I just genuinely didn't know.
Yeah,
it was amazing.
Yeah, it was good.
From my perspective, I guess major things that happened were on the Friday night. This is we heard that the position of Master of Fleets had opened up, and this is a position on the Small Council. Pretty massive coup if the Greyjoys can get it. Because we already have the biggest.
Yeah, everyone was like, the Greyjoys will never get that. They'll have a Greyjoy on the Small Council. Hold my Kraken, says Ian.
Oh, it's so good. So we already have the biggest fleet, and the second biggest fleet is the Royal Fleet. And I was like,
oh, shit.
I really want this. And I needed it, actually, like, because my authority was being so, like, challenged by Balon.
Yeah.
My play, in a sense, has to be, like, to actually get shit done and prove that the way works.
Yeah, you've got to just be competent without him.
Yes, basically.
And then you've got some authority to speak with.
Yeah. So that was like a big role, was to basically try and push for that in the background. So I was going for that. The other major thing that happened was that Salador San, the head of like the pirate king who essentially owns this area called the Stepstones, which are a major trade route between Essos and Westeros, have been held by pirates for ages, turned up and was basically talking a big game. Mm-hmm. We had some phenomenal RP, which was just like purely like so wonderfully antagonistic of like, he's all like, you know, you Greyjoys and us, we have a bit of a tit for tat, you know, it's like all a bit of, you know, it's just a bit of fun japes. Like, oh, I love talking to Greyjoys. You're so funny. You're so comical. You're such a joke. All this kind of stuff. It was like, and it was like, God. Balon was like ready to fucking murder this guy, but couldn't because of the King's Peace. And it was like, oh my word.
Oh my God. Oh, that was also really good because there was so much tension, but everyone was held in check by this idea that you are under this oath, essentially, this rule, that if you attack anyone here, you are at fault if you attack people with intent to harm.
Yeah.
And that would cause, you would immediately be in breach of the King's Peace, and that's your, you know, you would face the punishment for it, which was really good because, of course, so many people wanted to kill each other, but kind of couldn't.
Oh, you were all restrained wonderfully. It was so good. That was amazing.
Me? I would never have killed anyone. Wanted to? Maybe. Maybe.
I think like that though is when like I was at peak panic, like internal panic. So it was like, oh, okay, like I didn't really say very much in all of that exchange. Basically, I kind of just had a little sort of bit where I went to the cabin and just took a bit of a break, and I was like, am I just a really shit Lord Paramount? Like, I don't know any of the lore. I can't. I'm not like a super authoritative kind of figure. And then like I just took a little bit of a step and took a breath, and then I stepped out, and then I think I can't remember the exact chain of events, but I was just like I just decided I would, rather than try and battle Balon on this kind of authority kind of level, like talking over kind of thing, which isn't my natural kind of way. I find that quite difficult. That I would try and actually, to be honest with you, I feel actually more adhere to the brief, which is that actually Quellon is the reasonable person who is pursuing, like he wins by being right, and it has principles. And I actually end up kind of leaning very much that way. And I was like, and that felt really good to suddenly embrace this idea of like, I have agendas.
Yeah, but you don't have to run around after him and like win in every conversation.
Yeah, like I had this thing at first. Am I just supposed to follow? Well, this was the big worry. I was like, because also it's like Aaron, who is played by the incredible Illyri, is just like Ellery. Sorry, it is like the whole point is I'm trying to get them married off, but they're a chaos squid who basically doesn't want any of that. So I was just like, oh my word, like you're off doing your thing, quite rightly.
Which was actually quite a lot of it involved also trying to get Aaron married on a Friday night.
Yeah. And it's like my eldest and his wife are completely against me. My agendas with my youngest son, he's just going to destroy them all on impact because... Like, and I was just like, I have no power in any way, and I can't influence anything in any way, and I can't...
Aaron, would you like to meet this lady? No, I don't want to.
Like, that was my big fear, was like, I was just going to be that person who would be walking around, like... I don't even mind, like, losing. Like, I actually quite like losing.
But feeling ineffective, yeah.
Like, just like, I had no actual keys into any conversation, because it's like, my role in the conversation is just to get talked over. That's kind of how it felt initially. And then when I took a step back and I was like, no, like my role is to like not chase after them. They're supposed to, in a sense, chase after me because I'm the Lord, right? And like I'm actually the person who's making the deals. And I took a lot more authority in that way by actually being the guy going out being like, you are actually, you have no power and you want the power that I have. And my power is that I'm going to go and talk to Ned Stark right now and I'm going to put an end to this war, like right here and right now. Like, and so I just was like, so it was really nice to basically walk out and just be like, Lord Stark, let's have a conversation and like take him away from Balon and just be like, no, like come and talk to me. Yeah. And I'm like the only real claim, because like Robert basically, just for background for people, Robert's kind of grievance essentially, which, obviously it has some weight to it, is that his wife to be was taken away from him and married off to Rhaegar. And his pride is wounded in that sense. Very wounded. And Robert is like, at this stage as well, he is like this is kind of like the better nature of Robert as well. He's still this very kind of hot and cold running guy, but he's not like the kind of jaded, bittered figure that you kind of get later on, who's kind of obviously lost Liara. So, but like Ned has legitimately lost people. They have been killed by Rhaegar's dad, and like if he raises the banners, the cause that people will actually fight and die under, thousands of people will lose their lives, and ultimate, and the Quellon's kind of feeling is like this is generational war shit, right? Like it doesn't end because the people who die now in this war have children and they will hold on to the grievance.
Yeah, who then it's an eye for an eye that never ends, isn't it?
Exactly.
And that was the fear that everyone had. There was this real feeling on the Friday night. Obviously, I can only really speak to among the women, but among the women, there was this real sense of us running around being like, we kept hearing, oh, well, such and such is talking to this person. It was like, what? What are they talking? What? Oh, well, they're talking about maybe allying with this person. Allying? Like what? Oh no, like, oh, these people are trying to talk about war. These people are trying to, like, we heard a lot of rumoring, and it was like, oh, Robert's going to go to war. The Lannisters want to go to war. The Freys want to go to war. Oh, maybe the Starks are going to go to war. Like, it was just constant running around being like, because, again, we didn't have power, but there were a lot of husbands that could be spoke to. A lot of husbands, a lot of, potential betrayers, a lot of, like, young men.
Good.
So we did a lot of speaking and a lot of, like, don't be silly. think about what this would be. And I did a lot of my peak shenanigans, which I now, Mattie, have decided I'm basically just is my thing, apparently. Of hearing something somewhere, going, okay, that's interesting, going immediately somewhere else and being like, have you heard this? You need to know.
Yes. So good.
But okay, in this one, I want to say it wasn't for manipulative purposes. It was to stop war.
Yeah,
but,
those same skills though are in like they work in the same way. Like this is like
social manipulation, but for good or evil.
Yeah, I was actually like, this is the other real cool thing, because I had like a fair few links to actually a lot of the ladies in conversations as well, especially the Tullys, because obviously they were linked to you. But it was like, because I was quite a hard line pushing for peace. I think I probably was one of the main people pushing for peace.
Yeah, I think so.
So pulling like Ned aside and being like, because like Ned's public brief is that he is a reasonable person, right? And obviously Quellon knows this. And he's not the type of person who actually will condemn thousands of people to die.
Yeah.
So he's like, you have to, the decision is actually going to be you. The war this will be fought, the name this war will be fought under will essentially be you, right? Yeah. People are going to die for your losses.
Amazing.
Right. Like, and laid the weight on there. And I was like, and the only person who can talk Robert out of it is you.
Yeah.
Right. So I basically, and I told him this story about basically navigating a ship through a storm, very Ian-ish kind of style way of
love it
of doing it. It was very nice, kind of like to do. And the I can't remember his name, but the person he played Ned was incredible and just was Ned Stark.
He was with one of the group that had come all the way over from Poland, I believe.
Yeah. Just amazing player.
Yeah. I think he's called Roland. I think his name was Roland.
Yeah. We had just this... He kind of really listened to me in that intense way that people do. And he was just like, like Robert's like a brother to me. But... and then he took my arm and was like, but I will find a way to navigate this storm. And it was just like, yes, let's fucking go.
Oh, that's so good. I never had a chance to interact with him ever. And I really wish there were so many people. Despite it being a small mark, but I was like, I didn't have an excuse to roleplay with you, and I wish I had. But it was, they were all brilliant. Everyone was brilliant. Oh, can we just say for a second again
so good.
How good everyone was?
Amazing, right?
So
but that was, for me, that was an amazing feeling as well, because it's like, oh, okay, like I can actually, like I can do something, like I'm effective. Like the things that I am good at.
That's role playing. That's someone else being like, I could, because for all intents and purposes, as a player, he could have gone, nah, I'm not going to listen to whatever you say, and I'll be like, who are you even to tell me? But in order, like, giving that moment of like thank you, like I'm going to listen to you and let you tell this story and blah blah blah. And I think that's like, I love that. I love that sort of player. I love to be that sort of player. I always aspire to be that sort of player. Like, to give that moment between you makes it so much better. And everyone was so generous this weekend, when it was. Everyone was so generous. It was amazing.
And I think, I mean, like, I'm not sure, but I think I start, like, I'd like, it would be really interesting to know, like, how the ladies thought about, like, Quellon as a political force. But, like, very much I was like, I will talk to you honestly, and I'm brokering the thing that I'm working for is the prosperity of the realm and not for war.
Yeah.
And like the thing, like once that was in play, it was kind of like the people who I could speak to, like my relationship with the king took an immediate like uptick, because obviously I'm trying to preserve the realm. Balon is like, what is this bullshit? Which is incredible.
That was good. Get assigned Master of Ships on Friday?
So I can't genuinely remember. I either got it late Friday night, or I got it sometime in Saturday before the archery.
I think it was the morning Saturday. That sounds right. Yeah.
But yeah, so that was the main thing for me. I think I had a bunch. I had a chat with Caitlin as well, because obviously she's very concerned about you. And this was like the first time I spoke to the Tullys, and I was like, I kind of had this point in my head of like, am I that guy though?
What do you mean? Who is that guy?
Like, am I that guy who would like use keeping you as a threat? Like, am I going to use you as leverage, like in that sense? And I was like, I quite enjoyed being the good guy whenever, because everybody else seems so sort of keen for war.
Yeah.
And I was really enjoying being the guy, and this is brushing over a bunch of other conversations with people as well, just for brevity. But being the guy who actually was very much like, let's not do that. Also, Quellon's approaching the end of his life. Like, what does he actually want? Like, he wants you safe. And I kind of decided then, in combination with a conversation I had with Aaron and Master Marwyn, that I wanted one of my sons to at least think somewhat favourably of me.
Yeah.
And they were like actually my own kind of goals that were built into it.
Yeah.
So I ended up saying to basically Caitlin, like, I have no desire to see you. Like, basically was just very honest. Like, I don't want you around seeing. I didn't necessarily confess at that stage I was dying, but like,
oh, shoot.
I don't want you around.
I told Kat and Manisa very, very early on.
Yeah,
I think
they knew. I had a feeling they knew because the way they were speaking to me. Yeah, and I had, by the way, been walking around coughing all the time. Yeah. So it was pretty obvious.
Your little TB-ridden ass, like you're in a sort of Victorian Regency show.
And I kind of escalated.
What's wrong, my Lord Greyjoy? Nothing at all.
Yeah, and it's like, it was fun. It was fun. I had this chat with Maester Marwyn about the future of the Greyjoys, and this was when I really started putting the claim in for getting the Master of Fleets, basically working the back channels for it.
Yeah,
I was like, realistically, my people need to be shown our way.
Yeah,
and they need to be shown that loyalty isn't just going to be rewarded by being sent back to Pike and a place that has no resources and no real future available to it. They need something. So it's like, my proposal is, if we take the stepstones, I can install Aeron there. And then I didn't just like coming up with this literally in the moment. I was just like, oh, and this kind of works. Like, I install Aeron there, he becomes like Lord there, and I'm gonna disinherit Balon.
Did you say that on Friday?
I didn't say it to. I said it to Roderick on Friday that I was going to disinherit Balon.
Oh my
god! And I
was
gonna. Yeah.
I had no idea you had this plan at all, because I found out about this by accident the next day in the afternoon, after like half the game had happened. And I still didn't really actually know that this was a plan that you had. Which is so interesting. Oh my gosh, I love it. I love it.
There's a whole thing, basically. Well, to be clear, actually, there's a whole thing in Iron Island kind of lore that there's a thing you can do called a Kingsmoot, which is actually called by priests. I didn't actually know that at the time, so I'm slightly off brief here. But like, I thought that basically you could hold a thing called a Kingsmoot, and that's when all the captains basically vote for who they want to be king. And I wanted to engineer a situation where Aeron would be successful. He would be the person who actually has victories. Like, he would get the stepstones. Yeah. He would be the person bringing prosperity and a future. And then he would win the Kingsmoot.
Yeah.
And Balon would be disinherited. That was the plan.
Get wrecked, Balon.
Having that conversation with Roderick was really interesting, of course, because his sister is Balon's wife.
Yeah.
So that was like, it was quite a tense conversation to be like, I, as your best mate, need you to basically choose now, like, where your loyalties are on this. Like, because I need someone with me on this, working the back channels.
Oh, so good.
Oh, so good. It was so good. It was so good, dude.
Oh my god, can we play this game again, like, immediately? I want to do it again.
Oh my gosh. But anyway, yes, so I had this wonderful chat with Caitlin as well, talking about your future and stuff. And I think at that moment, I think all the Tullies got that actually Quellon's a fucking good guy.
Yeah, you're not a
Or at least, like not that. He's not Balon, right?
You're not Balon, yeah. You're not the Greyjoy that Melony is worried about, let's put it that way. Which also was really nice, by the way. Like, I know, like, in the brief, in the original story, there's no real sign of what their relationship is like, and it could have gone either way. And yeah, like, now I feel like my confidence with playing that kind of conflict would be much higher in doing it. But it was really nice, and it was really fun to play slightly. I've talked to you about this. I love an unconventional relationship, and like arranged marriage between two incredibly unlikely people turns into like a surprising like friendship is such a cool vibe. And also really nice to have like I guess kind of a proper ally, and someone who I essentially you pretty much were the only person I had any level of actual minuscule power over in some way.
Yes. In fact, like your power over me was a major problem, but I lent into
much more than I thought, which was great. I loved it.
Like there was some times where I came and talked to you, and you kind of essentially dismissed me.
No, well, it was the only times that I actually like got close to snapping at anyone was with you. I'm so sorry, and I'm so sorry that that's.
No, I thought it was great.
But it was amazing. It was like, okay, I was like, that's the only person who I actually trust genuinely has like my best interests at heart. And also I am annoyed and I am afraid, and I'm going to show that, and you can see that. Like the others could see it. I wasn't going to shout at them for other various reasons, but yeah, it was so interesting, and I really liked that, I guess.
Our dynamic was incredible in that sense. For the fact we never got to interact, the weight of your character on my character was extremely powerful.
Yeah, there was so much. I think we did say this as well before with the Greyjoys. I keep saying the Greyjoys, the Iron Islands. There were some Harlaws in there too. But the way that it was written beforehand, unlike, I would say, the majority of the other houses, if not all, we had a lot of internal conflict, which by virtue of the way this game works, meant that we had a lot of plot to go on, regardless of what happened when anything else. We were like, cool, maybe, I think there was a point where we were like, maybe no one's going to want to interact with the Greyjoys because, you know, they're no one's. But obviously there was a lot of effort made from the game team to make you valuable, and also good role players role play. But it was that we had this stuff, that we had a whole story going on within just us that meant that even if we weren't, like, I didn't see really any of you the whole weekend. Yeah. Because I was avoiding you and doing other things. But that meant that all of the stuff I was doing was still to do with you guys. Like you're saying, you know. Yeah,
it became quite clear. Every time I spoke to you was essentially an escalation of problems with Balon and Alanis.
Yes.
And it actually basically meant that, and we'll get to that, especially on Saturday.
Yeah.
Bear in mind, Quellon... Again, you're like his only really person he can trust in a sense. Like I trust Roderick, but he also has these kind of links.
You know, yeah.
You know, and it's like, but you can, like, you have this ability to talk to me in this way that, and we've kind of bought into this kind of ethos, right? Like you, like we have a shared vision, I think.
Like I'm here to do a job, and I know that, and so do you. But also, we both want this thing to succeed. Which is this religious thing, because, you know, there is a religion and we follow it and want everyone else to follow it. That's the way that it works. And that meant that we both had, like, that came back to me a few times as well, where people were like, oh, but what about, like, because I could have immediately just been like, I'm leaving straight away.
Yes.
So the only thing keeping me there for a while was this concept of, okay, you know, you want to be involved with saving these people's souls and bringing them into, you know, the light of the Seven. That's what you want to do. So it was essentially the whole weekend for me was waiting for that point, or without realizing it, waiting for that point when I was like, I give up. I give up on these people.
That was so powerful when I realized.
And that's why I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm over it. I'm not. I could have been someone who brought religion to this island and saved loads of people, but I'm sorry to my faith. Even then, I can't do it. And there were times when people were like, you know, how's it going? Oh, you know, they're all ruined. They're never going to follow the light and blah blah blah. And it was like, oh yeah, that was my job. Oh, I had one job, and here we are. But yeah, it was awesome.
It was amazing. It was amazing. Like, yeah. Like I can't remember when it was. I got flatly asked by Balon, like, if Quellon was in love with Melony, and I just didn't really know how to respond.
That's so
because, like,
though.
I was like, he kind of is.
Yeah, sure.
He kind of is.
It's more complicated than that, you know. It's like there's so many other layers. Yeah,
it was great.
Right, Friday for me. I remember the performance. I remember watching everyone get in a row and fake slapping George, which was really funny. It was really, really good.
Amazing.
The performance itself, and I was sat with Monica, who I very rarely get to roleplay with at Empire anymore, who was playing Lady Alice Aaron, sister of John Aaron, who was brilliant, very snarky older woman. Like, she was fantastic. I had such a good time. And Anya Wainwood, also of the Vale. I met Dennis Aaron. I met what's her name, Jenna Lannister. They were all great. We had some fantastic, like, because I was young though my character is supposed to be, in the married ladies club, it was really interesting to be like part of the youth, the cool youth, but then be like, oh, but I'm the married one, and then be like, oh, I'm also part of the married ladies club. It was like really fun to have these different dynamics and like talk to all these different people of like in a way of like, I'm on your level, not just I'm talking to you. Like, also meeting the Tullys again for the first time. So it was such a relief. They were amazing. We had some chats. I immediately was kind of like, I remember this moment when I was like with Kat and they were like, oh, do you want to come sit with us? And I kind of like looked at the Greyjoys and I was like, oh, I shouldn't. And I was like, you know, fuck it. I've got to make a stand at some point. Like, I've got to set the tone that I want. I was like, I'm just going to do it. This is like the one time I'm going to feel brave. Maybe I won't ever again. So I went and sat down with them and talked to them for ages. And it was amazing. And I just left you all. And I was like, cool. Well, at the very least, like, I felt bad abandoning you, but I was like, but this will be, hopefully this can be a thing for them. They can, oh, look, she's going. Fine, brilliant.
Yeah.
I talked to Lysa. We had a fantastic conversation. Chloe was brilliant. And Lysa was like, you know, I'm really worried, like, what is marriage like? Like, I'm really nervous. Like, you're married. Like, what's it like? Blah, blah, blah. And we had this really in-depth chat and everything.
Oh, amazing.
And I was suddenly like, oh my God, this is who Melony is. Okay, I get it. I'm here. Like, I sort of knew already, but you build so much in character.
Yeah, it locks you in, like these little, it builds, right?
In conversations with other people, you build that.
I think you get this kind of self-reinforcement of where the character is as well, where you're like, oh, okay, like this brick has been added to the wall of like who the character is.
Yes, yeah. And you're like, oh, that gap that I didn't realize was there has just filled itself in, because that's, of course, where that's supposed to be. And yeah, exactly. I loved that. And it was so, again, that was one of those beautiful generosity moments where someone asks you a question and that means that you get to think about it and answer and talk. And that is your moment in as much as it's theirs.
So good.
It was so good. Oh my God. No, it was like, without going too into it, it was really like, you know, like, I really don't want to like lay with a man. Like, what's it like? Blah, blah, blah. How is it? Like,
amazing.
And I was like, wow, okay, we're in this world now. I forgot. Like, here we are.
Amazing, yeah.
Head in the game, Mattie. We've got to do this. We're in this world. It was crazy. I in the end, I think I was just like, don't be frightened. We'll find you someone. Like, it's gonna be okay. And then there was the whole thing with like, clearly she was in love with Baelish, and I was like, oh no, maybe not, lass. Let's not do that one. It was a whole thing, but it was, again, I had never actually spoken about this. I hadn't game talked to Chloe at all about that, but she had jumped immediately in when I'd met all the Tullys of like, oh, I know you. You're basically like another big sister. Like, I know you. And so in asking this and doing all this was like, yeah, okay. And I was like, oh, thank you. You know, thank you. That's really nice. To just immediately have a relationship with someone you've never met before. But also have known for years at the same time.
I think that...
So we did that, walked around. What were you going to say, sorry, before I carry on?
No, I was just like, you sort of... I think you mentioned a while after the event, like, there was this kind of whole thing of, like, the ladies trying to make sure that they were looked after and they didn't end up with awful husbands, basically.
Yes.
And I found that such an interesting concept.
Oh, man. Oh, there was so much going... Like, really, this is what I was going to say. I will talk about a little bit more post covering this. But again, the game for the ladies was amazing. And I think it was obviously massively made by all the players who were there, who made it what it was. And it was incredible. I think it was going to be really backstabby and everything, you know, as usual. And there was an element of that. But also... there was this, like you said, you were really honest with the ladies. There was this immediate sense of like, we don't really keep that much from ourselves, from each other. Among all the ladies, of like, we just kind of talk plainly because there's no time, there's no point. The men will do that in politics. We get to be the ones that say the honest truth to each other because ultimately it doesn't matter anyway. We don't really have much to do with it. So give each other as much information as possible was the vibe that I got straight away. It was really nice. And I, you know, spoke to the Tullys of like, I'm really worried about what's going to happen. Like, I don't know what to do with all this situation. Like, I talked to them about Balon and Alanis and then about you not being very well. And I was like, I think I need a way out, blah, blah, blah. So they knew that very early on, which I think was good because then obviously it impacted all the game that you guys had with them as well. We walked around a bit. I remember one lovely moment because obviously Lady Minister Tully was trying to get her two lovely daughters married off as quickly as possible because they're very eligible. And there was one point where it was looking really good for Catelyn and Willis, and that was great. And then they were trying to get Lysa married off, and she was having a conversation with Stannis.
Amazing.
Oh gosh, it's one of the peak memories of the weekend. It happened really near the beginning, actually. We were all standing out there, and like Catelyn and I had gone there to watch, you know, to stand chaperone as Lysa was essentially interrogated
so good.
by Stannis, and she just was like babbling like words, and he's there like, not interested.
Stannis is amazing.
Aiden as Stannis is one of the best
absolute peak
things I've ever seen. It was incredible.
Absolutely nailed Stannis.
He was amazing. I've already told him many times, but like it could have been a bit, and it really wasn't. It really wasn't. It was really
it was so much more than that.
Person who was just like that, and it really took. I was laughing at the beginning because it was like, oh gosh, this is Stannis Baratheon. Oh, he's so serious. And Catelyn and I were laughing and giggling to each other, and Lady Tully was like, girls, really, if you're going to stand here, don't laugh. And we were like,
that's amazing.
It was such a moment of like, oh, we did used to be girls together. Oh, like the vibe was there.
That's great.
And then, for whatever reason, I think Benjen and Lysa ran off. Or Lysa ran off. Maybe it was talking to someone else. I think maybe Peter Baelish or something instead. And we were like, Benjen, can you take Lysa that way? We'll go look after her in a second. We'll just distract whoever it was. And that was the first moment where I was like, oh, those two could make a really great pair. They're really sweet. They're getting along really well. They were like the younger siblings club, you know? Club. But they weren't
amazing.
Adults, but it was really sweet. Little moments like that. I remember running around a lot. Oh, Robert's War Council. Oh my god. At one point, I can't remember who I was with. I walked into the Baratheon hut to find this beautifully laden table, and then at the head on like a plinth, on a chair on a plinth, was Robert Baratheon like sprawled in the light, you know?
Amazing.
For these assembled lords. Literally, it took me about 5 solid minutes before I noticed on the opposite side in the dark, like slightly behind, was Balon listening to this whole thing. I didn't realize he was there at the beginning, but I was there as he starts talking about like what he wants of a woman, and Catelyn is like, you know, that's not what you should want, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, well, what do I want? And she went on this beautiful diatribe.
Amazing,
like, everyone was like, it's amazing. I was like sat there like heart eyes of like, Cat, you're amazing. That's my bestie. I love her. And then watched as like Robert was like, you should call me Rob. And she was like, then you should call me Cat. And I was like, no, not okay. It was
amazing. Cat was like vital for the peace movement.
She was
absolutely really vital. I like
good.
top importance in it, pretty much.
Did brilliantly. She was a great role player. Absolutely love her. I'm so hoping that I get to role play with Sarah again because absolutely brilliant. No notes. Do it again, exactly the same, please. Thank you. I'm trying to think what else. Like, there were other things that
Iron Bank was a major thing. We'll brush kind of swiftly over because there's a lot of the same in a good way, but a lot like basically the Iron Islands are the only kingdom that doesn't have an account with the Iron Bank. So the big story there was they were trying to firstly free me, then free Balon, and so on. Basically try and get us to take out an account with them.
All the way down to me. And I was, and I quote, you are the last on the list, lady. I was like,
Amazing.
okay, I think that's okay. Thanks.
At some point, basically, we rejected them. I had a promise of coin, which is basically the way this works mechanically. Is you can chuck this as part of your waiting for your ultimate votes that you put in, or you can use it to convince another lord to help you do something.
Oh no, there was something, because I don't know if it was just before this or just after this, but we suddenly had word that John Connington, who was Hand of the
Oh
King,
yes,
had apparently on Rhaegar's orders arranged his troops. I think it was around the Stormlands or around. It was somewhere
surround Storm's
that
End.
was to stop Robert from mobilizing his troops. It was like a defensive move in advance, and everyone was like, "Oh my god, Robert's going to retaliate really badly." There was a whole thing. Apparently, Jon Arryn had to go in and talk him down, and was like, "Don't do anything tonight." Was the agreement? Don't do anything tonight. But then, of course, the Iron Bank come round, and the next thing I was hearing was Rob Baratheon has hired the Second Sons.
Yeah,
he's hired a massive mercenary company. Tywin Lannister has hired the Golden Company. Oh no. The Lannisters have got they've made a massive withdrawal in order to build new ports. Someone else is building new ports. Everyone's like, so it literally went from like, oh, okay, this is going to be fine, Catelyn's got this, to like, yeah, war is literally on the horizon, like now.
It became, so basically when I learned about this, because I wasn't part of Rob's War Council, when I heard about basically Tywin and getting the mercenaries and Robert getting mercenaries and stuff, and I was like, oh my god, like I actually...
Mercenaries shut me up. I was so nervous immediately.
I was really nervous about that. And I'd only, like, the thing is as well, the logistics of LARP, like I hadn't actually been trying to avoid talking to these people. It's just, I had never run into them, like, properly. I managed to have the time to speak to them in a proper conversation. I had like one conversation... no, that didn't even happen to the next day. So I didn't talk to Tywin Lannister till Saturday, which was like a really big problem. But I was like, okay, like the peace movement is like in massive peril, and I have to get Master of Fleets. Like I have to. I think for different reasons, you had introduced me to Lord Celtigar. To basically find, there's a potential. His daughter was a potential match for Aeron. But we got talking, and I was like,
I don't think I did until Saturday.
Yeah, maybe that was Saturday. Yeah, maybe this is all Saturday stuff.
Yeah, I think it was Saturday, because I think Friday really ended with us talking to the Iron Bank, because he finally found me and was like, "Can I talk to you?" Blah blah blah. And I was like, that's right. It was Friday night that Balon wanted to talk, because you were all sat in the hut having a conversation, right?
Oh my god!
And I can't remember what it was about, various people's marriages, and I'd gone in and been like, "Well, this person's going to do this, and this person's going to do this," because I'd heard all these things from the ladies, and I was like, useful information. Of course, Balon's immediate response on me saying anything was to directly challenge what it was.
Yeah.
And to essentially like talk me into a tangle straight away. It was amazing. It was incredible. So good. And I was like already tired of this, to the point like, but we'd really hit our stride, I think, as well on that. And then I was like, right, fine, do you want to come? I'm going to go to talk to Catelyn Tully. Like, wait, she was like, where are you going? And I'm going to go talk to Catelyn Tully. Would you like to come with me? I would actually. I was like, oh no. Okay. So we went, and I like, the whole time they were talking, I was like clinging on to Catelyn, like I was wrapped around her. I actually didn't hear half their conversation. I completely zoned out doing something else, which was amazing, because I was like, I'm so like out of this, like what? And then the Iron Bank person found me and was like, I need to talk to you. And I was like, me? What? And Balon was like, what? We were all very confused. But I left them to it to talk, and then at the end I was like, okay, Balon, I need to talk to your like father. Like, we should maybe consider this, because it was sounding really good. As like an option, but I also didn't know mechanically what it would do one way or the other, and also I had no power. So I was like, cool, we went back into the hut, we found you, we spoke to you, grabbed the guy, came back for a bit. I think the ultimate decision was, no, we're not going to do this. And I was like, cool.
Well, it was more than that. Balon threatened him at some point in the evening, basically, and said that if he came back, he'd kill him or something. I did hear about all this. This is, again, more of this kind of stuff of like Balon is doing like wild man
Balon
stuff
has
behind me.
threatened the Iron Bank of Bravos.
So the Iron Banker comes in and he's like, I've come here for my apology. And basically it escalates to the point.
God.
This is the only time I heard, "Oh, please get used," because Balon was like, "Oh, please," and he was like, "Let's escalate this," and was like, "I will not apologize, but I will give you satisfaction."
Oh my God, I love it. Yeah,
it was so good. He's like, and then the Iron Banker was like, I'm not going to duel you. I'm not stupid. And he's like, but then basically the conversation escalated until the Iron Banker almost basically managed to talk him into like, will you accept a champion? And then
were they going to fight?
Balon accepted.
Amazing.
Balon accepted. Yeah, find someone and I'll do it basically. God. And thinking about it after the fact was like, why did I not lean into this? Like, kinslaying is not allowed, but if Balon's stupid enough to get himself killed by someone like Sir Arthur Dane, I don't know. Then,
yeah, hey,
you know what I mean?
Hey, quietly, do you wanna be a champion for the Iron Bank? Don't ask questions.
Yeah, but at the time I was like pissed off at the Iron Bank for coming into the Greyjoy camp and like,
yeah, that's fair.
because he didn't talk to he spoke to my son. I mean, bear in mind, Balon is still my son. He was like, Sir, no, Mr. Balon. He didn't even call him a lord or something. I was like, what is this? This is not on. Anyway, it was amazing RP. Okay. And that is basically how and then Rhaegar popped round after all of this had cooled down. Rhaegar popped round. Yeah, he went to all the different camps, which I thought was really lovely. And basically was like, is there anything I can help you with? And basically was just saying, is everyone okay, enjoy the king's pleasure, kind of peace, and then all that kind of stuff. I had spoken to him before and basically repeated like master of fleets, and he's like, speak to me tomorrow.
I like ships.
Yeah, I have big plans.
I love it.
Big plans, big ships.
Yeah,
and then I think, if I'm right, basically we all just kind of had a really nice decompress at the sort of fire in the camp.
Yeah. So I think people kind of wound down. I think I spoke to Stannis properly for the first time then.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Which was really nice, and realised that actually we really get along. It's like,
I had the same realisation
like
with Stannis.
These second sons. They're weird and funky, and they're all right. They are. I like them.
Yeah, Stannis was really cool. Had a lovely conversation with Stannis.
Yeah, I just remember being like, why is he not Lord Paramount? Spoiler alert. That also would have been very bad. For reasons.
Oh yeah, we'll get to that.
Yeah. Oh, and then we put the little fire on. We all the little Greyjoy Iron Islands group, we stood in our hut, we gathered around the fire, and we had a nice chat about the day. Oh, that was right. One of the last things that Balon Greyjoy said to me before the evening was, I think there might be an Iron Islander in you after all, because of something that happened. And I was like, have we ended Friday night friendly?
Oh, is it because you'd helped like get all the marriage stuff off the ground, right? And I think
it was that, but I think I'd said something to him, and I'd done something, and I'd been really like strident about something in a really overt way, and he was like, all right. Okay, maybe. And I was like, wow, we've ended friendly. And then, we had a lovely decompress chat before getting all snugly in bed and going to sleep. And then the entire Iron Islands group barely made it to breakfast because we all slept in.
Oh, dude. I didn't really sleep.
Because I'm so used to people like moving around and waking me up, and everyone was asleep. And then luckily someone came to shout into Viking that it was nearly the end of breakfast. So I was like, go, 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 go.
Yeah. I think you and me made it down first, and then everybody else kind of scrambled their way there. Yeah. It was nice though, actually. Like I didn't really sleep that well, not because it wasn't comfy or anything. I think my brain was just alive with game. And I'd kind of finally hit the stride of where I wanted to be, and I was like, oh my god, yeah, okay, right, there's so much to do tomorrow. Tomorrow's a busy day.
Oh god, it was such a big day. So Saturday kicked off with the prayers. They did like prayers. So I went over with all the other faithful, and I sat to do the prayers, and you didn't come over.
I didn't come.
It's already like, it was too late for me to go and ask you to come and sit with us, to be like, Colin, it's like the prayers. I hadn't really realised, and I was like, oh shit. And I think it was Nysa who was like, such a shame your Lord husband didn't come and sit with us.
Oh,
And I was
man.
like, yeah, I'm really disappointed. Like, I kind of thought he would, because of the whole religion thing. Meanwhile, the Starks, the other Northerners, went out to the Godswood.
Yes, the Godswood, which looks amazing. They actually had the tree all sort of done up.
I saw from the pictures, looked really cool. And Lysa went with them.
Ooh.
So we were like, where is Lysa? Like, we haven't seen her this morning. This is really weird. Like, where is Lysa? And they all came back. I think they came back. They'd been attacked on the road, or someone had been injured and was being carried back by Lyanna Stark, who was covered in blood. And Lysa came running in like, the Queen's helping someone, blah, blah, blah. We were like, wow, that's cool. She's cool. There was, at this point, you will not have I would be shocked if you knew anything about this. It was deliberately quiet. Lysa starts going like to Kat, stands up there and I stand with them, and she's all like, I feel really unwell. And like, she's like touching her stomach, and I was like,
oh, is this the moon tea?
No, you can't be serious.
The milk of the, whatever it was. Yeah. I did know. Yeah.
You did? How did you know?
There was like a rumor that I just heard about that through the phrase and all the stuff they were doing, they were kind of dropping hints that, like, so I think at the time people maybe thought that Aeron might end up with one of the Tullys.
There was a
Tully daughters, which wasn't necessarily on the cards at that stage. I don't know, but anyway, I think Walder Frey basically suggested that they they like moon tea over there and all this kind of stuff.
Oh, shit!
I was okay,
I like it. Yeah. I know that Peter Baelish had done a whole thing of like, oh, she's really upset because she was rejected by her true love. This is so Benjen had told me, like, yeah, Peter Baelish told me something weird, and I was like, that's interesting. That you're telling me. I was like, what? I was like, you must tell me. Like, what did he say? It's about Lysa. It's very important, And he was like, well, yeah, she's really upset because she was, rejected by her true love. And I was like, what? And he was like, yeah. And I asked who, and he kind of like, implied it was him. And I was like, well, that's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's absolutely not true.
Yeah.
Don't listen to a word he says. It's not
amazing.
True. And like going through like, no, please damage control this. Because we'd spent so much effort, Kat and I, being like, Lysa, no, not Peter Baelish, please. Like, he doesn't love you. He's so desperate to be like with Kat the whole time.
Yeah.
He's clearly not a good egg. And then to find out this, and I was like, Lysa, maybe you should stop touching your stomach so much. If I figured it out, other people will. And I was like, and is it sorted now? Are you feeling better? And she was like, I will do. And I was like, oh, thank God. Oh my God. Yeah. And then I was like, that's really sad, but it is necessary. It's necessary, blah, blah, blah. It was a whole thing. It was just one of those great little moments again. And then we had favor making while everyone did like combat practice, I think. We were making that was really sweet. They had loads of fake flowers and like ribbon and stuff, and you were able to just like cut the flowers to create little, like, I guess tiny little bouquets that were meant to be your favor that you then could give to someone later during the tournament, or just if you wanted to. But the idea was to have them given before by the point of the tournament. And that was really nice, and it was just gossip central. We were just talking about stuff.
Oh, it
was lovely. And then like I met the Celtigar lady. I was like, sit with me, Lady Celtigar. And then we talked a lot about Aeron. I talked to the other ladies. It was great. Lyanna was there for a bit. So was Queen Elia. And then of course Lyanna went off to go fight. And the next thing I knew is I heard this great kerfuffle. I looked over and Balon is like waiting at Lyanna, and they're like fighting, and I was like, oh my God, what is happening? That's so unbelievable.
I know, it was disastrous.
It was awful, but she was delighted. She starts so happy about it. I was like, oh God, thank God she's happy about it, because that could have been really bad.
It worked out so well. They played out the fight really well as well, where like he kind of like was like wrestling with her, and then she like nutted him in the nose. It was so good. It was fantastic.
Yeah, it was very cool. And then you convinced me to sign up. So we knew that there was going to be an archery tournament.
Yeah.
And we knew it was the only thing that's technically allowed for the women to compete in. There was an announcement by Rhaegar that specific women were allowed to compete in the tournament later because, like, Alanis and Ashara and Alaris and stuff, they wanted to go and fight. And there was an allowance for that. But for the archery was, like, the only thing. And also, I love archery.
Yes.
And my bow was there, which is so unusual. So I was like, oh, I really want to, but I'm not going to. So I kind of like already like winked at you being like, I won't do it.
Yeah.
But if my lord husband insists.
And I thought it was like, it was fun to play this idea of maybe like archery is one of those few things that gets you out of pike. Like you are able to go and do a bit of archery.
Just shoot the sea.
Yeah. Like just take like, and I've seen you sneak out with a bow kind of thing. And it's like, that's sort of your thing.
Well, look, so arguably, this is what I meant by sort of fudging the rules. Arguably, with the prowess, I don't think I should have been able to do even archery.
Really?
But
okay.
Because it was, I'd kind of, in my head, not really, without realizing, had sort of justified as like, this is like the thing the ladies are allowed to compete in. Therefore, it's not considered like a fight. So even with prowess 0, like most of the women here will have prowess 0. So if we're all allowed to compete in the archery, then you can kind of probably just choose how good you are at the archery, and that's fine. Yeah. It's also, at that point, of course, I didn't think anything would come of it. I thought it was just a nice excuse to shoot.
So good.
You know, shoot the bow for a bit. It was nice, you know, it was lovely weather, it was beautiful. You said sign up. I was like, cool, great. So we went over to do an archery competition.
Because originally I was going to do it as well.
Yeah, it would have been you. But...
Well, because we were both going to go and sign up, and then the announcement came. Yeah, this is what that just before the archery tournament, there was going to be the small council meeting, and that was when the new things were going to be voted in. So I was like, well, I definitely can't do the archery then because I need this. So I handed off the bow to Aaron and was like, my son will represent me, which was actually really nice to do. That was really fun.
I like that a lot. So I helped Eldon, who was playing Benjen, was like, I really want to do this, and I'm supposed to be a master hunter. I don't know how to do this. So I was like, okay, cool. Here's your like quick like guide to what to do.
Yeah.
And then we did some test shots, and then we just started firing, and I whiffed the first one massively long distance away. I was quite near the front of the list, I think. So I went for the furthest target. They had 3 targets set up. If you hit the furthest one, it was 3 points. If you hit the middle distance, 2 points. And if you hit the closest, 1. It was cursed. Kitty has posted a lot about this. It was cursed. There were a lot of very good archers there. Most people only hit 1 target once, if that.
Right,
most people missed all the shots. I don't know if it was like a weird wind tunnel or if it was the weather making the bows different, like distance or something. I don't know. But yeah, we weren't very good. It was crazy. I whiffed the massively long shot, unfortunately. And then I was on the first round, no one hit anything, I don't think. I didn't think a single person hit anything. And we were all like, that's weird, but okay. Because the close distance one was pretty close. Most people went for the tour, which was not that far either. Really not that far. And we were like, okay, cool. On the second one, most people miss again. I managed to hit the 2 point, which was great. And I was like, oh, cool, great, wonderful. And they're fully expecting everyone to immediately aim and hit the 2 point. They didn't.
Right.
They just didn't.
There were the 1.
Few people had like the 1 or so. Oh no, 2 people in the first round had hit the 1 each. So we knew we had 3 shots each. So my first one, I hit nothing, and 2 people in the first round hit the 1.
Yeah.
On the second round, I hit the 2, so I'm now ahead. And someone else then hits the 2, which was Gary and Lannister. So we're both even.
Yeah, neck and neck. Yeah.
No one else hits anything. Not a single other person hit something. I think someone hit 1. Oh yeah, that was it. It was Benjen, bless him. Eldon was like,
oh, amazing
for it, and I was like, okay, just a tiny bit higher. And he just lifted it up, let go, and it went plonk straight in the middle. And I was like, that feels like a win for me.
Yeah. That's another point from Melony.
There's another point from Melony. I should have said that was a half point. Anyway, it was good. I was like, it was mostly, I was just saying it on a slightly OC level, as it wasn't Melody offering that advice. It was just Mattie for, poor Benjen.
Sure, but you're allowed to have fun, right? Like,
right, look, Stark, it's harder when they're not moving. With the justification. So then at the end of the third round, it's just me and Garion. But Garion had in the arrow had gone over and we'd heard like a shing kind of sound.
Yeah,
it was
whispered
half
on it,
point. it was like, it wasn't at the end. So I was like, oh, technically he's ahead by a half point. And it was Arthur Dane. At one point I heard Arthur Dane and the Kingsguard being like, is it Melody? Or is what's your name? I was like, Melanie. I was like, oh my God, they know my name. That's so cool.
Amazing.
On those things, like Mattie's like, oh, they know who I am. And I could hear people being like, go Lady Piper. I was like, who even? It's people cheering for me now. Wow, okay.
I was.
Yeah, it was awesome. Garion and like he's like, wow, we've got this banter going, and then Arthur Damon's like, no, if you were a true gentleman, you would get rid of the half point and fight, like shoot off till the end. And I was like, I would love to do that, you know. And Garion was like, yeah, all right, come on, let's do it, because I think both of us silently were like, more shooting, more better.
Yeah.
You know, more archery, great. So we did a shoot off on the second distance. The guy was like, okay, you need to shoot the closest one until someone hits. We both looked at each other and went, can we go for the middle one? I think that's a better, bit more entertaining. And we did. And it was like, you know, he'd shoot and miss, I'd shoot and miss. He'd shoot and hit, I'd shoot and hit. He'd shoot and miss, hit. Like we did this a few times.
Yeah. It went a while.
And then it was, he missed and I hit.
Yeah.
And it went bonk in that noise you heard.
It was such a satisfying sound, dude. It was so good.
And I was like, yay! Lady Piper wins. And I was like, oh my God, I won.
I think I literally said, that's my one.
That's my wife.
I just broke character. I was like, oh.
That's so valid. It was so good. It was amazing. We then stayed there for a while and everyone just kept trying to hit the really, really far target. And I hit the really, really far target. So I am the best archer in Westeros. No, it was just really fun. It was fun. It was just a nice, fun diversion. Except then I was told that there was a prize. And I was like, what? And they're like, yeah, the prize is a favor from the king. And I was like, what? What are you talking about? Oh my God. You know, I was introduced to the king and I was like, I don't know how to talk to a king. I was like, hello, thank you, yes, goodbye, really quickly.
So good.
You know? And then I had this favor for the rest of the event, really. I had to think about what to do with it.
Yeah, I mean, because you came up at one stage, we spoke about what we could use the favor for, and then it was...
Yeah, I was asking quite a few people, like, I have different ideas. I think I pulled Catelyn aside at one point and I was like, I was thinking of doing something crazy. I can't remember what it was at that point.
Yeah.
Like asking to, I don't know, annul the marriage or something immediately. It was something crazy like that. Where
wow.
Yeah.
Spicy.
Sorry.
No. I think that's very spicy. Yeah, I think so. Basically, the original thing was, in the end, I could have taken part. But I'm not bitter. Like, I'm actually quite pleased I didn't, because it was nice to watch it.
That was it. It was very much a game where not being involved was just as good game.
Yes.
Being involved. Yeah.
Baron, I'm getting to have, like, once everybody's distracted by the archery, not only can I watch you sort of shoot and have a great time, but I can also be like, this is a great time to talk to Tywin, for example, and other people when everyone's distracted. I spoke to Robert and Tywin both then during that point.
Oh, that's good, yeah.
And basically, the call for the small council, I think they just decided to delay it until after the archery in the end, which made sense, obviously, because everybody wanted to watch or just enjoy the spectacle of it.
It was pretty good, yeah.
So then we head off to the small council.
The Dornish ladies, though, just before I finish. Like, Ilaria had been shooting, so I'd helped her to shoot. It was a little moment of like, here, my light, like this. It was great. And Ashara had been like, are you from Dawn? And I was like, no, but like coming from a Dornish lady, that's clearly a compliment, you know. I was like, I'm not. And she's like, well, maybe you should visit sometime. And I was like, oh, the Dornish ladies have noticed me. Like Ashara Dane herself, you know.
Yes.
The most beautiful woman, and also just fun. She's great.
Yeah. Ashara was such a good character, actually, throughout the whole thing. 100%. Like, just played so well.
I had a lot to do with her for the rest of Saturday, and it was really, really good. I really enjoyed it.
Really good. Yeah, so I went off to the small council meeting. I had like my big push for becoming Fleet Master.
Was there anyone else going for it?
No, but there was a lot of people saying, well, there was people like Tywin and some other people saying I definitely shouldn't get it.
Classic.
But fortunately, I'd managed to do the groundwork, basically. And I had like Maester Marwyn was on board. And I'd already kind of had a few conversations with Rhaegar about it. And the basic gist was the main problem with me getting it was I was really trying to tie it into this idea where it is a title that can then go be held by Greyjoys.
Yeah, that was such a big thing to go through.
That was a big thing, yeah. I would, but I was just like, I kind of need to go big because the war was looking quite likely at that stage.
Yeah,
and I really needed to be powerful.
Of LARP, like you can do crazy things like that.
Yes, yeah. And I was just like my perspective was I need to be as powerful as possible so I can do what ultimately I ended up having to do. It kind of comes into fruition, but basically. Yeah. I was pushing for that, and I was also pushing for the whole idea that if we took the Stepstones, we could take them. Having Maester Marwyn on board and having Lord of Crab Island...
Celtigar,
Lord Celtigar kind of on board as Master of Coin, because he could kind of see the sense in it. And then having Lord Tully kind of on board as well, and he got voted Master of Faith. I can't remember the actual terminology for that. But...
Lord of Laws, I think it was.
Master of Laws. We had like a little power block, and this kind of power block ended up being like a big peace movement power block, essentially.
All the water boys.
Yeah, very much. And
Wet Lab's power block.
Yeah, it was pretty much like that, actually. And we were just like, this is good. And when the king signed off on it, I was like, oh my god, the relief, Mattie. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm like, and like I basically got pretty much everything I want. It all got undermined by the end of the event.
I mean, it wasn't ever going to last, but it was nice.
But in that moment, I had it all, which did like it put me in an extremely powerful position. I didn't realize how powerful a position it was.
Yeah, your fleets were very powerful. Yeah. Well, okay. So after that, there was, I think, there was an encounter because we were going to have the ladies thing and then it didn't end up happening, but someone came shouting saying, oh, one of the ladies in waiting has been grabbed by some bandits.
Yes.
So all of the men went herring out of there, plus et al, everyone else as well. And I just stuck around. I was like,
so did I.
I'm cool, I'm gonna sit here. And it was quite empty, but there were still people to talk to. I think I chatted to a bunch of people for a bit. It was nice. I was like, I don't need to know what's going on in that encounter. It's fine. And they came back and there was like a dead woman. It was a whole thing.
Yeah.
Benjen had lost an eye. Everyone hated him because apparently he'd done so. He was like, no, I'd seen that there was going to be another attack. They were about, like, it wasn't going to be a peaceful exchange. I managed to save, like, blah, blah, blah.
Interesting.
He gnarly, like, lost his eyes. He was in an eye patch for the rest of the time. And started to get really weird. Like everyone, some poor person was like sad. The Tyrells moved in on the Celtigar deal at this point, which was very machinations of them, and I love it. It was so good. And then I think it was basically we had lunch, which was just like quite relaxed.
Yeah, I think this is one of the things we actually did get to sit down for a bit of lunch together. And... yeah,
I came over. You and I. We queued and we actually had a bit of a chat for the first time in the lunch queue. And then we sat down with Foster and I think Roderick.
Yes, yeah. And we just had a lovely chat.
We did, but I do remember saying, oh, I've got this favour. And I was like, oh, I think I was like, I don't really know what to use it for. And I remember Foster going something like, well, remember, family, duty, honour, which is obviously the Tully house words. And was you have to remember that if you're not planning on using it, you need to remember that it's for your family and your duty. You should be using it for that. And I was like, it was such a beautiful reminder that, like, yeah, we're friendly, but he's still not the lord of the house, but also he's this older male figure in my life who is in charge. Like, I do still have to have this level of respect, and there is still this law of, like, this rule of family, like, it would have been very different talking to the women of like, you probably have to be careful, but you could do this, versus him of being like, no, that's what you use it for. And I was like, oh my god, yeah. I just had this moment of being like, I felt really like in such a beautiful way, like put in my place, and also put in my place in the world of the game.
Yes,
at the same time. And I was like, you're damn right. That's my Lord Paramount. I mean,
I was so good. I loved Hoster Tully was so good.
So good. Red was brilliant.
We had like a really good relationship, actually.
I loved the vibes that he played, like, so much. Like, it was so steady,
Yeah.
but still very to the laws of the world.
Yes.
Like, it was really good. It was excellent. All of the Act 3 stuff was incredible as well.
Yeah. Oh, good. So good. So good. But yeah, we were like pretty big allies at this stage, like, or building towards that. The other thing I remember happening at lunch, I think there was a point where it was just you and me, and then Alanis came and sat with us, and we were talking about Aeron's marriages, and then we were talking about Balon and how Balon was a bit of a problem.
Oh, yes. So, yeah, what had happened was before... No, that was all dinner. That was
that
all...
dinner?
Oh my God, no, maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was lunchtime.
We had, I thought it was lunch.
With Jane Farman, right?
Yeah.
So Jane Farman, who was there in place of her brother, who was Lord of Faircastle, aka the other sort of fleet owners that they're from the Westlands. So they're allied with the Lannisters. And I had been talking to her about, this relationship possibly that everyone wanted to seek between her and Aeron, and she was like, look, I'm not interested, I'm not going to do that. And I was like, cool, thanks for I'd had a really frank conversation with her deliberately, because I'd already been like, okay, that's the way the ladies talk, and that is definitely the way I talk. I'm not here to do this whole let's talk around the point. No, she needs to know, and I need to know, is she interested in this? If she's not, I'm going to try and get them to lay off, because it's not fair to her otherwise. So we had this whole conversation, and then she was like, okay. Oh, actually, you're all right. And we actually sort of started building this beautiful little friendship. One of the many beautiful little friendships I managed to build. I had a great time, just being friends with everyone, actually. It was really nice. But then we were queuing for lunch before I went to stand with you. Or we were just about to queue, and Ren, who was doing an NPC at that point, came over and was like, just so you know, Miss old lady Farman. I always keep forgetting that one.
Yeah, Farman, I think.
Farman. The Greyjoys have agreed to Lord Greyjoy, Balon Greyjoy. I had to clarify that one. Has agreed to let us use the chairs and tables for this evening's dinner. Under the condition that you will sit with them for dinner. And I was like, what? What? We've just, no. And I could see her panicking, and being like, I don't want, but they need the chairs. And I was, in the end, I kind of was like, so who had said this? And they were like, okay, it was Lord Quellon Greyjoy. And I was like, okay. Well, I was the one and only time that I actually threw my weight around a bit, and I was like, well, I am Lady of Pike, and so I say you can use those tables and chairs, and you do not have to sit with them. And Jane's eyes were like, that's amazing. And I was like, oh, I feel so cool for one moment. That's great. And then I was like, oh, Balon's going to kill me. Great. But it was good. Actually, it was shortly after I had fully stolen her from their conversation.
Yes.
So I'd seen that she was involved in being talking to them. Actually, maybe I'm getting this out of order. I'm so sorry. I think maybe I'd talked to her already. I'd found out that she wasn't interested already once, because I'd gone around checking the ones. I'd found out that Lady Celtigar was interested, and that Lady Ashara was maybe interested. She just wasn't.
Yeah.
But it would be a case of Lady Ashara would not move from Starfall. Someone would have to go there.
Yeah.
So I'd then seen that Jane was being talked to by the group of Greyjoys.
Yeah.
And so I'd gone over and been like, okay, I'm going to do this. This is a great moment. I walked straight over and went, Lady Jane, your favour is unfinished. You haven't, you can't possibly. And she's like, oh yes. And walked straight away from this group as Balon's there like, what? And I was like, cool, that felt good too. I liked that. That was fun. Melony Icy is absolutely deathly scared of what's just happened, but that's fine. So we did that, and then of course the dinner thing, and I was like, are you kidding? But there was also, the reason why that's out of order is because apparently Balon had made this agreement much earlier, before we'd had the conversation about, he's not, she's not interested. But it still felt cool to be like, no, I'm still technically Lady of Pike, and I say you can use the damn tables. Like, please go for it.
So
It's
the instant I was remembering as well, because bear in mind, I'm actually largely oblivious to a lot of this stuff that's going on. I'm busy doing kind of like proper peace talky kind of stuff at this stage, and basically just trying to get everyone on page and work around that whole issue in the Stormlands which was like a big problem. So I'm trying to unpick that Gordian knot and basically trying to work out a way we can resolve that without war. But what I remember is, and this is why I thought it was at lunch, was that you were sitting with me and Alanis came and sat with us, and basically we were like, Balon is kind of stubborn and needs to sort of learn his place, basically, a little bit. I can't remember exact phrasing, but we were pretty abrupt about it.
So I think I said, can you please speak to your husband
that was it,
about leaving, like, Jane Farman alone, because, like, he doesn't seem to be listening to anyone else about it. And she was like...
And I agreed as well.
Yeah,
which I think was really
it was brilliant. It was so
good. It was so good. And I immediately was like, I've made a huge mistake.
I know.
I should have stayed quiet. Like,
I was like, I really kind of went out on a bit of a limb to do that, and I liked it. It was good fun.
Oh, it was fun. It was.
Yeah, you're not gonna. I very rarely take this tone with any of you, but only because Balon is not here and I'm so exasperated will I say anything even remotely like that, like, to you outright.
Yeah.
And it was so good, and the reaction was really, really good, and I was like, ooh, love it, we love it, it's good stuff. Oh, it's such a good game,
man. Okay,
the whole afternoon, just like it there were so many things happening. Well, there was, when did the trial happen? So first of all, John Connington and Robert Baratheon spoke under the eyes of Rhaegar to resolve their differences.
Yeah.
And Robert demanded a fight to the death.
Mm-hmm.
I think he specifically said he wanted it to be a fight for the death. I vaguely remember. If I'm wrong, I'm sorry. Then John Connington was like, well, then let it be a trial of the seven, which means that you have seven aside, the gods decide essentially whose team wins. And is more often a fight to the death, from what I gathered, at least for the main people involved. So that had already happened. The idea was that it was going to happen that night.
Yeah.
Well, the first idea was that it would happen after the duels, actually,
mm-hmm.
Because everyone would be in armor and ready to do it. It didn't, for various reasons, happen at that point, but it did happen that very day. There was also the trial of Walder Frey.
Yes.
When was that? Was that in the afternoon?
That was the afternoon, I think. Just after maybe
I think it might have been just before.
No, was it after dinner? I can't remember. Dude, it's such a blur. Because there was a small council meeting.
It was before dinner, because I think, in fact, it was right before dinner, because I didn't actually attend because I was changing for dinner, but I was kind of half listening from the hut. So that was a nice thing about being so close by as well. It's like I did miss some of it, but I was sort of still aware of it happening.
So at this stage, the one thing that me and Balon kind of had agreed on was that we would basically make strong ties with the Riverlands. I did not realise the ramifications for you at this stage. Because also at this stage,
pretty big move on this
at this stage also he was like, because I've kind of got this hanky that I have now put blood on and I'm coughing into, and it's fairly obvious to people that I'm in a bad way, so he now knows. So he's like asking about what's going to happen to you in the future, and he doesn't want you hanging around a Pike. And I was like, okay, but I don't want that either, so at least we're aligned on this. So I basically, what I didn't say was that you wouldn't be coming back with us. What I did say was that you would not remain there. But he read this as in, you're never going back to Pike.
And that was because we talked, I think, Friday night or maybe
Yeah.
Saturday morning about the fact that I talked to the Tullys about, if there's an impending marriage, it would be very convenient for you to come and visit your old dear friend Catelyn or Lysa, depending on whose marriage it was, and stay there for a while, perhaps, you know, towards the end of the year, which is when we were expecting you to die, and be away for a while. And there you go. I'd also just like to point out by this point, within the first like 2 hours, the Eyrie had 100% volunteered to like send someone to come and collect me and keep me safe in the Vale. Like I was already protected there. Like the Tullys had gone for it already. I don't remember if there was another. I think there was another house that had. By the next day, all of Dawn had offered the same exact thing, or similar. Had been like, well, Dawn is a good place to get to. Jane Farman had been like, I'm gonna figure out how to get boats to you, like. We'll talk about it. I was like, don't worry, I can like, we'll do it. She said at the end, she was like, I was so glad that you did what you did because I was starting to really worry about how to send a boat to the Iron Islands. I was like, oh, that's really sweet. Shara Dane, same thing, come to Dawn. I think Jenna Lannister did as well. I can't quite remember.
Yeah, I had a big conversation with all of the Tully ladies, basically. And we were just super frank at this stage. And I was like, I am dying.
Is this on Saturday then?
This is on Saturday.
Okay.
And I was like, I am dying.
And they go, oh, we're so surprised. We didn't know.
No, not at all. Like, I knew they knew. And there was no point holding the pretense.
Yeah.
And also at this stage, other people were starting to find out. And that was a big problem anyway, for the peace cause. But
for a secret, I really didn't keep it very well. But
it was I wasn't keeping it well, to be fair. And on purpose, I have a belief that you know, secrets are best revealed in LARP.
On secret.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
But this one was definitely the one that needed to come out. Yeah,
it kind of unsettled things in a great way because it went from being basically in a situation, because after being elevated to Master of Fleets, I had a very frank conversation with Tywin, and I was like, and this was basically one of the only conversations we really had, and I was like, you're a pragmatic man, and I'm a pragmatic man, and you can surely see what would happen if we were drawn on different sides in this, basically. And it was like pretty much like there's no need, right?
Oh, it's so good. I bloody love this kind of politics.
It was so good, and I think this is why I ended up having, like, as the event went on, and my power was at like a sort of a peak at a certain stage where I was basically just able to say, like, I hate to break it to you, but we will have peace. Like, like we will. Like,
we're gonna do peace now?
I kind of like the amount of, I think, like, I learned ultimately I had like 85% of the boats in Westeros were under my command. It was like
it was a lot.
Ridiculous. So it was like, when I realised just how powerful it was, I was just like, yeah, like, we are an island and I control the navy. Like,
yeah, good luck.
And, yeah, so it's like it would be a very bad move, and basically. Yeah. Some people I needed to kind of coerce, but most people, because when they started learning that I was going to die, that became a problem, right? Because at first they were on board because the vision is true. But when I'm going to die, it's like, well, what happens after you? Yeah. And it's like,
and everyone turns around and looks in Balon and goes, that's what's going to happen.
That's a problem,
you?
right?
Oh, dear. Yeah.
And the one thing I didn't want to do was drop that I was obviously going to disinherit Balon, because that fucks everything up.
See, that's so interesting, because that would have been a massive deal for me to know, obviously. I mean, I think it's fantastic that I didn't. I think if he had found out about it and then had questioned me, I think my genuine lack of knowledge would have been the only thing that saved me from being immediately murdered. But like, oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, I at that stage, because I was kind of under the impression that, like, the less involved I was with you, the safer you were. But the problem was I had made my last move for Melony, which was basically to, in Balon's eyes, agree that you would not return with me to Pike and that you would stay in the Riverlands. And then this became a problem.
The Riverlands.
Because they have arranged a marriage between their youngest and the heir to the Riverlands, basically.
Well, but names. Before that, that was later. The first that I heard about it, really. Oh, in fact, no, it would have been about the same time. But the first thing that I heard about this idea that I was not just going to go to the Riverlands at some point to visit, ostensibly in air quotes, to escape, realistically. But I'd also kind of got to the point where, like, we hadn't been that bad, Bill and I, during the daytime. It, like, I'd made a few more kind of slightly ballsier moves, and I hadn't really got into a particularly bad situation yet. And I was like, okay, this is maybe okay. Like, maybe I'm showing enough of, like, my, in quotation marks, worth as an Iron Islander that, like, maybe I'm like getting some respect. And then over he comes and says, Mattie, would you be able to sit with me for a minute? And I was like, wow, we have never had a one-on-one conversation.
Amazing.
This is terrifying. So we sit down and he goes, so what's this about my Lord Father offering to you to go to the Riverlands? You're going to leave with them? And I was like, what? And Ian, because we are barely halfway through Saturday, might I suggest that we break
leave
it
it there
and see what happens?
Yeah, that was extremely spicy. Yes.
It was big spice.
Big spice.
There's a lot to talk about. There's a lot to
there
talk
is
about.
still a lot
I would
to go.
love to take our time to actually, like,
yes, I
review
agree.
it once we've gone through the weekend.
I agree. I hope you've all enjoyed this. It has been so necessary to go through the process of talking about all this with you, Mattie, because it was.
Done it. Oh my god.
Well, we literally didn't interact, like, but in the best way.
Yeah.
Like that alone, I think, was
Yeah.
was what made our relationship as characters so compelling.
Yeah.
That we were so, like, especially you were ever present in my story, and yet I never really interacted with you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's weird, isn't it? Like, there was so much of your character in everything I was doing, and yet as a player you were barely there. We really and I obviously there is another part of me that's like, oh, it would have been really nice to do more, but
there'll be other lots.
I think it worked the way it worked. You know? And also
I actually wouldn't change it.
Please run it again.
Oh, dude,
I just want I want to do like 1 year later or something.
Yes.
That would be amazing. 1 year later, 5 years later, I don't care. I really the same again. Just
I want to do a year later, even though I won't be there.
God, that's a good...
Oh my god, we'll get to that. Like there's a whole thing. I had such an amazing time writing letters and stuff to everybody and all of this kind of stuff. It was, but we'll talk about it all next time. There's so much more to talk about on a dragon hunt. So next time on Dragon Hunt. But thank you all so much for listening. A massive thanks to all the Patreons who keep all the lights on here. You're incredible. And humongous thanks to you, Mattie, for joining me on all of this and convincing me to go.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Shout out to Ren for running Dragon's Hunt and of course
incredible
Rise and LARP group. Everyone was amazing. I can't wait to talk about the next half because realistically, that's where things get really interesting.
Yeah, it heats up.
It heats up pretty fast. Thank you for having me. Thanks for listening.
No problem. What is dead and will never die.